Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku had Snake Mutation? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by XiyakaHex on Fanfiction.net. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now, let's dive into the story. Missing Persons Report. Name: Izuku Midoriya. Age: 5. Quirk: Shed with Snake Mutation. Allows user to basically shed their skin to give them a human form with extra shed turning into clothes. Went missing in a nearby park close to family home. Report was made after mother, Izuku Midoriya, was told by Izuku's friend, Katsuki Bakugo, that while him and his friends were playing, the boy had been left behind. Katsuki had gone back to check to see where Izuku was, to find him nowhere in sight, which then he immediately went to tell Izuku. Status: ongoing. Naomasa rubbed his eyes at his desk with Izuku's file open. It's almost been 10 years since this boy has gone missing, and I still don't have any leads, sighed Naomasa. No evidence was found at the scene, and despite a massive search of the area, there was nothing. Not even a body to give any sort of closure for Ms. Midoriya. I just hope that boy is okay at the very least. Naomasa gave another heavy sigh before gathering all the paperwork and putting it in its file before putting it away in his file cabinet. Kakin, wait up. You know I can't slither that fast. Called a small boy with dark green curly hair, bright green eyes, and a long snake tail in place of legs with a dagger-like tip. His tail was covered in thick emerald scales with smaller scales dotting his face and arms, while large fang poked from his mouth. The boy was trying to chase another group of kids despite his heavy snake-like body. Then why don't you shed Deku? Yelled a blonde boy with sharp red eyes. It's the only good thing about that stupid form. The blonde boy then ran off with his group of friends, leaving the snake boy far behind. The snake boy stopped chasing the kids the moment they were out of sight and looked down at his all-might shirt sullenly. Shed isn't stupid, at least I look more normal with it, said the boy to no one. Oh, and what do you mean by normal, boy? Said a voice behind the snake boy. The snake boy that quickly turned around and started to coil his tail around his body with the dagger tip facing in front of him, scared at the sudden voice. It lets me look more human, stuttered the boy, trying to coil as tight as he can. Why, you know, with H human legs and not a S snake tail. Now, that is an interesting quirk, smiled the tall man in a clean black suit and tie. Well, not by itself anyway. That's why Kakin says it's weak and stupid, said the snake boy sadly. He says I can't be a hero if that's all I can do. An idea seemed to cross the man's face. What if I say if I could make that quirk more powerful, said the man. The boy looked up to the man curiously. You could do that? I mean, make my quirk better? Yes, but you would have to come with me to do that, said the man, watching the boy's reaction. But Mom told me not to go anywhere with strangers, said the boy, looking away, clutching his tail nervously. Well, I suppose you don't want to be a hero then. The man looked away with a slight frown. Nowadays, it seems you need a powerful quirk to be a hero. The boy looked down in thought, as if arguing with himself, then looked up to the man with a determined look. Yes, I want to be a hero, exclaimed the boy. Then Mom wouldn't have to worry about me so much. The man looked to boy with a large grin. Well then, what is your name, boy? Izuku Midoriya, answered the boy with a stutter. Well, Izuku, you may call me Sensei, said the man as he reached down to pick up Izuku. Izuku clung to the man's neck as he wrapped his little tail around Sensei's arm. I see a lot of potential in you, Izuku, so we best get started. Sensei then walked through a dark, misty portal, disappearing without a trace. Dream again, thought a creature with a large, muscle body with a large snake tail, instead of legs tipped with a barbed sword-like tail, snake-shaped face with large needle fangs, covered in thick black, green scales and faded scars, the top of its head with a long curly and matted dark green mane. As the shifted, as an attempt to get comfortable, the chains that were attached to its collar and wrists rattled. Cold sleep, the creature thought as it tried to coil its snake tail tighter around its body to get warm in its cold, dark cage. The creature flicked its long, slender, forked tongue, tasting the air as it heard its heavy cage door. Doctor, the creature hissed, questioning as it slowly opened its eyes, revealing dull emerald eyes. Even though its cage was dark, it could see a man at its door, through colors ranging from dark blues to bright reds, thanks to the pits in its face next to its eyes. Cold. Sleep. We. Not. Hungry. It managed while closing its eyes. The man chuckled as he flipped a light SWCH from outside the cage, causing the creature flinch and hiss annoyed, not getting the chance to change its sight from the inferred sight. Now, my cute Nomu, I know for a fact you were at least a little hungry, said the man who was stout with a lab coat on and a large grin. We just need to warm you up a little. Today is a big day for you. Today is the day you get to prove your worth to Sensei. Nomu slowly uncoiled itself to sit up and looked to the doctor with a hint of interest and spoke, Sensei. Yes, Sensei's successor is going to give you a fun hunt today, said the doctor as he started to unlock the chains on the Nomu. You get to hunt All Might today along with the students. All Might, the Nomu said with a hint of sadness before it was replaced with hunger and drool started to run down its jaw and hissed. Hungry. There. I knew you were hungry, said the doctor, unlocking the last chain. Now follow me outside your den while I call Kirigiri. I have to show you to Sensei's successor so that you can familiarize yourself with his scent. The doctor then left the cage with Nomu following, still a little sluggish from a cold. As they left the cage, the doctor pulled out a flip phone and spoke. We're ready, Kirigiri. Send us over. Nomu flicked its tongue out as there was a change in the air. It could not quite figure out what it was even after a few more flicks of its tongue until a dark mist started to form. What Nomu could only guess is a portal in front of them. I'll go first, Nomu, you follow, said the doctor sternly. Behave yourself. No questions, just follow orders, and you might be let out to sunbath. Nomu nodded as the doctor entered the mist portal, and then Nomu followed, disappearing into the void. They re-emerged in a room with wood-paneled floors and walls. There was a U-shaped table in center surrounded by stools on one side, the other with shelves of bottles. Bar. Nomu guessed in its thoughts as it looked to the man, made of mist, cleaning a glass cup. Nomu, thin, shivered as it noticed the temperature change, was now warm. It could feel its energy returning and its hunger more noticeable as it started to drool again. Disgusting. Does it always do that? Said a man in his 20s, sitting on one of the stools. Nomu looked to the blue-haired man, covered in hands. Nomu flicked its tongue with a quiet hiss at the rude comment, wondering what this human would taste like. Don't worry, he's just hungry, said the doctor, slightly nervous, and then looking to Nomu sternly. Now, Nomu, this is Sensei's successor and your new emitter, so listen to what Shigaraki says. You don't want to be punished, do you? Nomu then shook its head and answered with a shiver, No, punish. Hurts. Shigaraki looked to the Nomu a little surprised. Wow, that's the first time I've seen one of them talk. Ah, yes, sir, that is one of the reasons it is particularly special, besides the quirks it got from Sensei, explained the doctor. It is one of the few that retained a large portion of its intelligence after pneumification. Now, sir, I do wish to ask you to let the Nomu get close so it can register your scent as its new MSTR. Shigaraki nodded, and the doctor motioned the Nomu to move close to Shigaraki. Nomu slithered close and leveled its head to Shigaraki's and started to flick its tongue repeatedly. Several. Sense. Confusing. 1. Strong. Focus. New Mr. Shigaraki. Protect. Thought Nomu and nodded to the doctor with a soft hiss. Looks like he registered you just fine, sir, said the doctor. I hope he serves you well in killing All Might. If you would please send me back, Kirigiri have some other projects that need attending. The doctor then whispered nervously, I hope Nira hasn't gotten a hold of them. I barely have enough materials for myself. Nomu's ear twitched at the name of the head scientist, who was nice and scary at the same time. Nomu will miss her and the treats she brought for it to hunt. Kirigiri nodded and waved a hand, opening another mist portal, and the doctor walked through, the portal closing behind him. Now, Nomu, we're about to go to a particularly important raid. Hopefully the doctor gave you the right stat boost for yours and his sake, said Shigaraki. Nomu nodded. Kirigiri, are all the fodder ready? Kirigiri closed a flip phone that Nomu did not notice the Mistman was using. Nomu flicked its tongue and instantly was annoyed. No. Sent. Can't track. Thought Nomu, flicking its tongue again, just in case. They are ready for the signal, Tamura, answered Kirigiri. Good, then let's get started, said Shigaraki as he started to scratch his neck nervously. Why? Isn't painful? Questioned Nomu, but it wasn't their place to question. They were punished if they asked questions. Nomu just had to follow orders, and then they might be able to sun bath. We miss sun warmth. Kurogyri then creates a portal for all three of them. Don't worry, Nomu, you will have plenty to eat here soon, said Shigaraki, pointing to Nomu's maw that was still drooling. Nomu looked away a little embarrassed as Shigaraki continued. Now follow after me. You attack when I tell you to. Get it? After Nomu nodded, Shigaraki walked through the portal. Nomu slithered close behind, and Kurogyri behind it. Nomu and his masters re-emerged in a large dome structure with different extreme biomes and sections. They were in front of a large fountain as other people started to emerge from portals around them. Nomu guessed that these were the fodder that his MSTR Shigaraki had mentioned. Nomu started to flick its tongue to take in what was going on. Near a large set of stairs was a mass of smells, one oddly familiar, but too faint and mixed in with the others to tell. With his eyes he saw was that they were mostly children. It counted 19 and 2 adults. Eraserhead and number 13, said Kurogyri. According to the teacher's curriculum we procured yesterday, Mr. All Might was supposed to be here, and yet. I knew it, spoke a man with unkempt hair, goggles, and a long scarf. So yesterday was the doing of you louts. Where is he? Said Shigaraki, starting to get irritated. We went through all this trouble and rustled up so many of us to bring along, you can't tell me All Might. The symbol of peace isn't here. Shigaraki took a moment before grinning under his hand mask. I wonder if he'll show up if we kill the kids. Nomu was starting to become impatient, its tail constantly shifting in response. Hunger started to get to it. No, wait, need, order. First, Nomu thought. Soon the man with the scarf started to race down the steps as the fodder went after him to engage. To the Nomu, the fodder seemed to be just that, fodder, as the scarf man was defeating one after the other with ease. This got Nomu excited as it started to thrash its tail in impatience. A low gurgle sound vibrated in Nomu's throat in excitement for a potentially challenging hunt. The sound was like that of a crocodile. Kurogyri then disappeared and then reappeared over where the children and the other adult were. Nomu then noticed there was something delicious next to it. Fear. It hissed hungrily as it looked next to it. There stood one of the fodder, shacking in delicious fear as it was trying to escape from engaging the scarf man. Nomu looked to its star, pleading for an order. They were starving. Shigaraki looked to Nomu amused, and then to the frightened excuse of a villain, and gave an order. Nomu, go ahead and have a snack. Nomu grinned, its fangs gleaming in the sunlight as it twisted its body over the villain, who was too focused on watching the scarf man. With a loud crack and pop, Nomu unhinged its jaw and bit down on the villain. The villain screamed in sudden pain and terror as a large portion of his body was in the Nomu's maw. Nomu lifted the villain into the air, still screaming. Nomu straightened its body as the villain was slowly slid down its throat until there were no more screams, and the villain disappeared down its throat. Nomu gave a satisfied hiss as it popped its jaw back into place. Hope you still have room for All Might in there, Nomu, said Shigaraki, amused. Plenty, answered Nomu, calming down now. It had something in its stomach. Shigaraki was starting to become impatient, scratching his neck while staring at the scarf man, easily defeating the fodder. Shigaraki then raced off to engage the scarf man. Nomu did not move, however. It was not ordered to, and it was simply happy that it had food in its belly. Just enough if they need to shed in an emergency. It should last a couple of days before forcing itself to return to its normal form. Nomu had a bad habit of thinking too much. "Inomu, attack!" yelled Shigaraki, pointing to the scarf man. Nomu popped to attention. It shaken from its thoughts and slithered after the scarf man. Nomu noticed one of the scarf man's arms was injured, probably MSDR's doing it, thought. As Nomu quickly got to the scarf man, it whipped its tail around, slamming the scarf man in his side with the base of its tail. The scarf man flew from below. Wasting no time, Nomu tried to wrap its strong tail around the scarf man, but he slipped through with his good arm. Slippery. hissed Nomu, annoyed. If their tail was not going to do it, why not their claws and fists? Nomu then started slashing and punching at the Scarf Man. Nomu started to respect the Scarf Man a little for being able to dodge its claws. However, the man was getting tired and was slowing down until one of Nomu's punches connected, sending the man into the ground. Nomu let out a victorious screech that sounded like a hiss of alligator. Shigaraki was walking confidently to Nomu and the Scarf Man. "Hold him, Nomu," he ordered. Nomu complied by wrapping its tail around the Scarf Man's boy, only lightly constricting so he would not escape. "You can erase quirks." Shigaraki started a monologue, causing Nomu to make a small sigh. Respectable ability, but there's nothing to it in the end. After all, when faced with overwhelming might, you might as well be quirkless in that situation. Kirojiri then started to appear next to Shigaraki. "Kirojiri, then is number 13 dead?" asked Shigaraki. "I have incapacitated him," answered Kivri. "However, I'm afraid the students whom I could not scatter impeded me, and one was therefore able to escape with his life." Shigaraki then started to become visibly irritable and started scratching at his neck viciously. "Kirojiri," growled Shigaraki, "if you can't be a proper warp gate, then our plans have crumbled. There is no doubt that if they throw dozens of pros at us, we cannot win. It is game over." It's game over for now." Nomu tilted its head in confusion as Shigaraki's attention shifted to the large lake. "Actually, before that, why don't we use this opportunity to take?" said Shigaraki as he quickly moved the lake's edge, reaching over it. The symbol of peace's pried down a notch. Distracted by Shigaraki's sudden movement, Nomu's coils loosened a little as Nomu flicked its tongue a couple of times to catch the scent of two children, a girl that smelled like a frog and a boy who smelled of intense fear. Nomu guessed he could not smell them before because they were wet. "You really are a cool guy, Eraserhead," said Shigaraki, annoyed. Nomu looked down to the Scarf Man to see he shifted his body to stare at Shigaraki from Nomu's loosened coils. Noticing this, Nomu quickly tightened its coils, causing the man to gasp in pain. Suddenly, there was a crash at the dome's entrance, and a large blonde muscle man walked through. "Have no fear," the blonde man yelled, "for I have come." Nomu hissed in excitement as Shigaraki commented, We gotta continue. I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach." Monologued the blonde man. "Seriously, why does everyone monologue? Let's just hunt," pondered Nomu. "So I cut the principal's long story short and decided to come check on you all. I happened upon young Ida on my way here. Thanks to him, I heard the gist of what happened. It's all right now, for I'm here." "All Might," yelled Shigaraki, "we were waiting for you, hero. Or should I say, you hero trash." All Might then raced down the stairs, tossing all villains in his way until he stopped in front of Nomu. Nomu was a bit surprised by All Might's speed. While Nomu was caught off guard, All Might grabbed Nomu's tail, forcing it to uncoil to grab Scarf Man. All Might brought the Scarf Man to the group of people on the stairs. "He really is quite fast," commented Shigaraki, glaring at All Might. "My eyes couldn't follow him, and yet he wasn't as fast as I expected. Could it be our intel was true after all, about how you're weakening?" Nomu noticed a twitch on All Might's smile and flicked its tongue. "Fear," Nomu thought with a grin, a challenge. "Carolina," yelled All Might as he charged towards Shigaraki and Nomu. "Inomu, hunt," ordered Shigaraki. Nomu charged in front of All Might. "Smash," yelled All Might as Nomu took a cross chop to its chest, followed by several punches to its chest, but Nomu barely felt it through its strong scales and tough body. "Look no further than the beast's amazing shock absorption ability," commented Shigaraki. "If you want to deal Nomu any damage, it'd be effective if you slowly and steadily scooped out his guts. Though him letting you do that is a different story." Nomu made a glare and hiss towards Shigaraki while trying to defend against All Might's punches. "Thanks for telling me," said All Might. "If that's all it takes, then don't worry. It'll be a cinch." All Might grabbed Nomu from behind and tried to perform a German suplex. Instead of being sent into the ground, Nomu was sent through a mist portal. Appearing right under All Might with Nomu digging its claws into All Might's stomach, All Might started to cough up BLD. Nomu then started to drag All Might through the portal, While Shigaraki monologued some more, you planned to drive him deep into the concrete and seal his movements, right? But you would not have been able to seal him for long anyway. Nomu is the same power level as you. Isn't it great, Kurogyri? He handed us the perfect chance on a silver platter. I certainly don't like having BLD and organs inside of me, so it will be a touch displeasurable, but, commented Kurogyri, I'll gladly endure it if it's handed out by a man of your stature. It was Nomu's duty to restrain your dizzying speed so that I could open a gate while you were in a prone state. It is now my duty to eviscerate you. Nomu was confused. No such set of commands were given, they lie. However, this has been an exciting and fun hunt so far. Suddenly, there was a large explosion and an awfully familiar scent. Out of the F-way, screamed someone Nomu could not see as it was still trying to drag All Might through the portal. Suddenly, Nomu could feel that it was cold. Nomu screamed and hissed at the painful cold, already feeling its body becoming sluggish. No. Nomu panicked in its thoughts. No. Sleep yet too early. As Nomu panicked, it let go of All Might and pulled itself through the portal, causing parts of its body that were frozen to shatter. Nomu hissed and screamed at the pain and flicked its tongue, rapidly searching for the cause of the ice. Nomu spotted a boy with white and red split hair, with ice coming from his right leg. A boy on top of Kurogyri with blonde spiky hair and sharp red eyes with a strong familiar scent. Kakin, thought Nomu. It was confused where did that name come from. While Nomu was pondering, the parts of its body that was shattered started to regrow back to what they were. Stand back, all of you, yelled All Might, motioning to the children. What the? Wasn't his quirk a shock absorption quirk? I never said that was the full extent of his abilities, explained Shigaraki. As you can see, he's also got super regeneration. Nomu is a human sandbag artificially crafted to the height of physical fitness to withstand your 100%. Nomu kill the explosion brat. Shigaraki pointed to the spiky blonde boy. He was within striking range. Nomu coiled its tail and lunged maw open wide, until a very familiar scent filled its nose and tongue. Images of a small boy with red eyes filled Nomu's head. Nomu stopped itself moments away from the boy, closed its maw, and just stared at the boy, flicking its tongue rapidly, trying to take in every bit of the boy's scent. Kakin. Nomu watched the boy, curiously. Why was this Kakin so familiar to him? He did not want to hurt him. Katsuki was his friend, right? When Nomu spoke his old nickname, Katsuki Bakugo flinched. How the hell did this creepy snake thing know its nickname? Thought Katsuki as he took a closer look at the creature and noticed some similarities between an old friend of his. The green curly mane, the emerald eyes that just had a spark of light in them, and though dull and dark, the green scales. No way this overgrown snake is Deku. Nomu, what are you doing? Yelled Shigaraki. Kill the brat, that's an order. Nomu recoiled suddenly and started to thrash and writhe, holding its head in pain. No! Hurt! Kakin! Nomu screamed and hissed, but order, or punished. Suddenly, All Might came charging towards Nomu. Nomu saw the challenge and charged towards All Might, and they started to trade blows. It's shock absorption, not total nullification, yelled All Might. It must have a limit, He was made to withstand me 100%. In that case, I will just give it more than 100%. A hero is someone who smashes through every obstacle life puts his way. Do you know what I speak, villain? Plus, Ultra. With one final blow, Nomu was sent to the ceiling. On instinct, Nomu used its tail to grab one of the ceiling support beams and clung to it. Nomu was hurt and tired. Its whole body hurt. It needed to escape. It needed to shed and hide. It needed to find Nira. She would make him better. He misses Nira. Need to shed, Nomu whispered as it suddenly slipped off the support beam, too tired to continue holding on. When it landed, it tried to sit itself upright, its arms barely holding itself up. Nomu looked around. Shigaraki and Kurogyri had disappeared, and there were more adults. They were circled around Nomu, all on the defensive. Need to shed. Nomu hissed the whisper. Its eyes began to dull. Its scales started to pale, and its body became stiff and rigid. Out from the center of Numu, a body fell out. All Might investigated the body, and the Numu body started to crumble and disintegrate. All Might was shocked. It was a young boy, about 15 years old, with green curly hair, claws on his hands and feet, a long blade-tipped tail like the Numu's, and green scales speckled the boy's body. Somehow the boy was just wearing gray sweatpants. When All Might reached down to pick up the boy who was now fast asleep, Katsuki ran up to see the boy. Katsuki almost fell over in shock and exclaimed, "Well, SHD, it is Deku." "Katsuki, do you know this boy?" asked All Might. "Yeah, I do," said Katsuki sad, but relieved at the same time. "Problem is he's been missing for 10 years. SHD, yelled Shigaraki, scratching his neck viciously. "We lost. We utterly lost." "Humph. Well, that answers my initial question I was going to ask," said a small girl about 9 or 10. Green hair with black highlights, bright red eyes, jagged teeth, wearing black and green striped pajamas, and white lab coat that was a little too big. She was dragging a purple plush doll that looked like a hairless rodent, had 2 pairs of pointed ears, yellow eyes with red scara, arms that were too long, and a green cloak and tie. She was walking out of a mist portal. Despite having a large, toothy grin on her face, she was glaring at Shigaraki. Shigaraki glared at Kurogiri as that mist man quickly put away a flip phone. "I apologize, Tamura, but Nira requested to be brought here immediately to speak to you, as well as give an update report to Sensei," said Kurogiri. "Yes," said Nira, walking to one of the stools. "I come to find out one of my scientists thought it was a good idea to take my dear Izu and show him to Sensei, claiming he was one of their Numu experiments." Nira looked up at the tall stool annoyed. "Mr. Hyde, could you give me a lift up, please?" Nira let go of her plush doll as it stood up and lifted Nira up to sit on the stool. The plush doll made a long sigh as it lifted itself up onto the bar table and sat at the edge next to Nira. "Mr. Hyde, I would appreciate it if you didn't sit on the table," said Kurogiri, a little annoyed. "Make me fog freak," spoke Mr. Hyde through sharp, jagged teeth, glaring at Kurogiri. "You're lucky you, but wipes don't have all of the Mad Lab trying to raid this place." Now, Mr. Hyde, we're not here to threaten, because we still have a contract with Sensei," said Nira, trying to calm Mr. Hyde by patting his head. "However, if I find out that any of those disgusting heroes hurt a single scale on my poor Izu, consider the contract null." Nira started to scratch the table with her long metallic claws as she was starting to become visibly irritated. "That dim-end scientist. Once I'm done turning him into a worthless, mindless Numu, he will be Izu's first hunt when I get him back," growled Nira, scratching the table harder, making deep gashes causing Kurogiri to glare at Nira. "I mean, taking one of my prized children that was designed for stealth into a frontal assault. It could have gotten my poor noodle boy killed." "Nira," snapped Mr. Hyde, "you're ranting again." Mr. Hyde looked apologetically to Kurogiri. "Sorry about the table, Kurogiri. I'll make sure it's fixed or replaced." "Please ensure that it doesn't happen again," replied Kurogiri with a sigh. "I would prefer the furniture to stay nice." Nira snaps out of her rage and looks to Kurogiri. "Sorry, bad habit of mine. I do plan on rescuing Izu eventually. Unfortunately, Sensei has me on a tight schedule with current projects. So, I am here to let you know that if you and your party have a chance to rescue Izu and do, my trust with you will be renewed and allow you to use my lovely children, including Izu, for any future missions after." Nira then hopped down from the stool, Mr. Hyde behind her as Nira pulled Mr. Hyde into a tight hold. "With that said, Kurogiri, can you open a portal to Sensei? I need to update him on my current projects." Kurogiri nodded and opened a portal in front of Nira, and she walked through with Mr. Hyde in her arms. "Hard to believe that Short Beach is in her early 30s, said Shigaraki, recovering from being stunned until he jumped from a loud voice behind him. "I heard that, Hansi," yelled Nira's voice. "I am not that small and still young." Shigaraki looked behind him and spotted in the corner of the ceiling a small metallic fly with a single large eye and a large open mouth filled with jagged teeth, chittering as if it was laughing at him. "You can't be serious about sending a kid to Tartarus," argued a skeletal man with long blonde hair and piercing sunken and blue eyes. "A child they may be Tashinori," said a mouse, bare thing. "However, If the statements from both the students and villains are true, then this child almost killed Aizawa, as well as ate a fellow ally whole, and was still alive. We can't take risks with that. That child is extremely dangerous, especially if it could keep up with you. Tashinori hesitated. The mouse had a point. Then he had an idea, albeit a risky one. Nizu, why don't we try out the reform program for young adults that you've been wanting to push through? Asked Tashinori. This kid would make an excellent example if it's successful. Nizu pondered for a moment. And who, may I ask, would watch the boy? Answered Nizu. From what I understand from what young Bakuga described, that his shed quirk is what gives him a human form. So, if Aizawa was the one to watch him, the boy would just turn into that beast form. Tashinori gave it some thought. I'll take responsibility for him, answered Tashinori. I'm the only one that can match his strength. Even with your time limit? Questioned Nizu. Yes, answered Tashinori. If we need to, we can have Kiyama put him to sleep, as well as have a place here on campus with tight security. Nizu gave a small sigh. I'll give it some thought, Tashinori, but for now it is getting late. I'll give you my answer in the morning. Nomu slowly started to wake, flicking its tongue, trying to get an idea as to where he was. He looked around. He was surrounded by heavily reinforced walls and a large metal door in a corner. It looked like his old cage, but smaller. He looked at himself and saw he was in his human form. We shed but was too weak to flee. Nomu whispered to himself. It was so much easier for them to speak in this form. No large snout or fangs hindering words. Nomu's ears twitched as it heard tapping from a nearby vent. Nomu inched closer to the vent to investigate and peered in. Looking back at them was a small metallic lizard with robotic eyes down its back. In its mouth was an earbud. One of Nira's scrap spies, thought Nomu, happily wagging its tail as it held out a hand to let the scrap spy crawl onto it and drop the earbud. Nomu picked up the earbud, tapped the on button on the side, and carefully put it in its ear. Nomu only heard static until he could hear Nira's voice. Aizu, can you hear me? Said Nira through the earbud. It's okay, you can talk, they just have you in a basic holding cell at the moment for people with enhancer quirks. Yes, happily replied Aizu. I can hear you just fine. Oh, that's good, sighed Nira. What I can tell through the stock you're holding is that stupid doctor didn't do too much damage to you. However, I'm getting weird mixed signals from your brain, though. Must be from the forced new edition of Quirk Sensei gave you for that mission. I've been having a hard time with certain words, said Aizu, even referring myself as a mindless Nomu in third person, or referring myself as we and they when around someone not part of the family or I'm not closely familiar with. Nira gave a low growl. BSDRD must have conditioned you like a mindless after you were recovering from being given quirks. Oh, I wish I had caught it sooner before he took you away from me for 10+ months. Speaking of my mind, said Isaac, during the mission, I think I met someone from before you made me better, Nira. I believe I called him Kakin. His scent was incredibly familiar. Nira sighed. The one thing I can't get rid of when removing memories is removing subconscious memories. Aizu, you still wish to be a hero. Aizu looked down. He knew Nira hated heroes, but that was the whole reason he let Nira make him better. Yes, you know it's been my dream since I was first brought to you. Really, you still want to be one of those money-grubbing but hats? Yelled Mr. Hyde from the earbud. Through the earbud, he could hear another yell in the distance. He still wants to be one of them. Aizu, come back to the family. I miss my hunting partner. Aizu gave a small chuckle. Sorry, Zillion, it's something I still want to do. Find you better at least come and visit sometimes. Yelled Zillion. Nira gave another sigh. Fine, at least you can say I tried to change your mind and have you stay with the family. You're also in luck. Jekyll was digging around in the UA computer systems. He found that the school has been trying to institute a reform program for young adults who had turned to villainy. You would be the perfect candidate. Why would they have me part of the program? Asked Aizu. You know I need special needs. I doubt they're going to let me eat a couple of humans every other week. Don't worry, Jekyll is having a nice private chat with Principal Nizu over an encrypted computer call. He's informing Nizu all of your physical and dietary needs, so they can have more than enough raw animal meat for you. Izu scrunched up his nose. Animals don't taste nearly as good, even when it's a fresh kill. Well, do you want to be a hero or not? Asked Nira. Yes, quickly answered Izu. Well, heroes don't eat other humans now, do they? Asked Nira. No, they don't, answered Izu in defeat. It's going to be something you'll have to get used to if you really want to be a hero, Izu, said Nira sweetly. Just know you can always come back to your family here at the lab if you ever don't want to be a hero anymore. Izu smiled. I know, because that's where my true family is. Of course, my sweet hatchling, said Nira. Also, before I forget, that stalk and camouflage in your hair. Jekyll will be close by monitoring you and making sure you're okay, as a just in case. Last thing I need is my dear hatchling getting hurt or killed because of a stupid hero. Don't worry, I'll be all right, chuckled Izu. If it's Jekyll, he won't let even a bug come near me. Well, at least I know you're all right, so I better let you get some sleep, Izu, said Nira, not really wanting to stop talking. You have a big day tomorrow. Nizu should be showing up bright and early with the hero midnight. Have a good night's sleep, my little hatchling. I will, Nira. Good night. Izu replied with a soft smile before he heard the earbud cut off. Izu took the earbud out and crushed it in his hand before he handed the pieces to the stalk. The stalk looked at the pieces before it started to eat them. Once it was done, its body turned translucent, and Izu could feel the creature crawl up his arm and nestle itself into his hair. Izu moved over to the cot that was in the corner. He lay down and curled himself into a ball with his tail wrapped around his body. Izu dozed off with dreams he thought he had long forgot. Side story: the day Sensei gave Izuku to Nira for her to work on, Nira was walking through the hallways of the Mad Lab with a sleeping Izuku holding onto her neck with his tail wrapped around her waist. Nira hugging him close and Mr. Hyde following behind her. Hallways of the lab were pristine and white with the sterile smell of alcohol in the air. Mr. Hyde was observing the snake boy, noticing his green hair and green scales. Nira, please tell me the reason you insisted on taking on the boy was not because you both have green hair, sighed Mr. Hyde with a hint of annoyance. Come now, Mr. Hyde, you know me better than that, said Nira cheerfully as she stopped in front of a door, Mr. Hyde opening it for her. Inside it looked like a cabin-themed bedroom. Wood-paneled walls and flooring, a wooden desk and dresser in one corner of the room, a twin-size bed with plain white sheets and blankets with a wooden bedside table with a lamp on it on the opposite side of the room. Sadly, I know you too well to know that was your only reason that you wanted to take him into your care, commented Mr. Hyde as he pulled back the blankets on the bed to let Nira lay Izuku down. Okay, fine, that was part of the reason, sighed Nira as she slowly uncoiled Izuku from her waist, trying not to wake him. He just seemed so sad and scared. Mr. Hyde cracked a chuckle and toothy grin. Why am I not surprised? You always had a soft spot for young children who seemed hurt and scared of the world. Hell, 90% of the lab is made up of them. Nira responded with her own quiet chuckle, making sure Izuku was snugly tucked in for the night before walking back to the door. Isn't that the truth? It's part of the reason I despise most heroes and adult humans. They always seem to ignore the ones who are truly hurting. Mr. Hyde walked out the door first as Nira stopped at Izuku. Good night, and welcome to our strange family, my cute little hatchling, whispered Nira with a soft smile before turning off the light and closing the door behind her. Nizu was at his desk looking at his phone. He had just finished his call with Tashinori, telling him to meet him in his office this morning before classes started. Suddenly a knock came from the door. Yes, who is it? Asked Nizu. It is your favorite online friend Nizu, answered a smooth voice. I did tell you I was coming, yes. Nizu sighed. Yes, Jekyll, you did. Please come in, Tashinori will be arriving shortly. The door opened to reveal a thin man in a very stylish but professional black suit and slacks, dark purple undershirt, and yellow tie. Has long gray, almost silver-white hair tied into a ponytail, red cat-like eyes, a cut circling his neck with what looked like fresh blue stitches, and hands with large claws. Good, so hopefully we can get this explanation done quickly, said Jekyll as he walked next to Nizu's desk. I'm sure little Izu is getting stir-crazy being in a cramped cell. Also, will Aizawa be attending? Izu is going to be in his class. Aizawa will be showing up with Tashinori, explained Nizu. You know, Nizu, said Jekyll with a grin. Nira's offer to you is still open for you. She really wants you to be part of our little family. Tell her my answer is still the same. Nizu answered with a slight irritation to his voice. I know what her quirk does to those she's worked on. Jekyll wanted to push further, but there was a knock on the door. Nizu, it's us, said Tashinori through the door. You can enter, said Nizu, happy to avoid the topic of Nira. In walked Tashinori with a very tired-looking man with a scarf around his neck. Jekyll quickly guessed that the man who seems like they have not had sleep since the day he was born was Aizawa. Aizawa spotted Jekyll and frowned as he closed the door behind him. And who is this Nizu? Asked Aizawa. This is Jekyll. He'll be the one to watch Midoriya as he attends UA, answered Nizu. Jekyll quickly glared at Nizu. Midoriya is not his family name Nizu. I went over that. His family name is XiyakaHex. According to his BRTH certificate, it is Midoriya, said Aizawa. Humph. That was with his human family, scoffed Jekyll, which he is no longer a part of. He is now a part of the proud Hex family of Mad Lab with Nira as mother of all her children and my lovely little brother. The crazy childlike scientist I've been chasing down for years, yelled Aizawa in surprise, sending a glare towards Nizu. I'm not happy making a deal with Nira either, Aizawa, said Nizu, but she ensured that Jekyll would not cause any harm to anyone here, as well as Mad Lab not attacking UA if we grant XiyakaHex's wish to be a hero. He is here to make sure Izuku stays safe, as well as make sure Izuku also does not hurt the other students. Really, Nizu, you made a deal with a villain, growled Aizawa. I'm more than a little irritated with Nizu. A villain who I am in deep debt with, Aizawa, sighed Nizu. Plus, I honestly would like a human with the amount of power that Izuku has on the hero's side than villains. Aizawa sighed and relaxed, but was still visibly irritated. Fine, add another problem child to my already sizable list. Tashinori coughed, getting the attention of the room. Forgive my ignorance, Nizu, but who are the Mad Lab? Of course, you wouldn't know who the Mad Lab are, answered Aizawa. Mad Lab is a secretive villain organization run by Nira Hex and her brother Neo Hex, where they specialize in human experimentation, ranging from completely changing the human form to quirk alterations. I've been tracking them down for a while now, but the moment I think I've found one of their labs, they've moved locations. Jekyll gave a quiet whistle and looked at Aizawa with a little respect. And here I thought I've been able to keep most information about us a secret from you, Eraserhead, though it makes sense with how persistent you have been. Anyhow, said Nizu, standing up from his chair, there will be one other person joining us, Jekyll. Oh, and who might that be? Asked Jekyll. Midoriya Inko, answered Nizu. She deserves to see her son again at the very least. Honestly, Nizu bringing his human mother is a bad idea, warned Jekyll. Izu isn't part of that family anymore. He is with the lab and his true family. All you would be doing is hurting the human's already damaged heart. She still should at least get to see him and know he's alive, argued Nizu. Fine, have it your way, Nizu, said Jekyll. Izuku shifted in his sleep, slowly waking up and uncoiling his tail from his body. Izuku's ears perked up as he heard what sounded like chains rattling, a click, and the door of his cage started to open. Izuku's tail started to wag, and tongue flicked to make sure, as Jekyll entered the cage. Though Izuku felt a little confused, as there were two mystery smells and a familiar one, but he could not place a name. Oh, there's my little Izu, said Jekyll as he rushed to hug Izuku. Have they feed you? If not, I will have Nizu arrange a meal for you. They haven't feed me yet, Jekyll, chuckled Izuku, accepting the hug. I don't need a meal until tomorrow. That fodder, Shigaraki them that, was an okay meal. All right then, said Jekyll as he let go of his hug and faced the door. Let us get introductions out of the way then. And then walked a tall man with a tan trench coat and black hair, the Detective Izuku guessed. Flo the detective was Nizu, and behind the rodent thing was the familiar smell. In walked a short woman with long green hair and looked like she has not seen sleep or sunlight in years. The woman saw Izuku, and almost immediately tears started to form in her eyes. Izuku, she whispered, and she ran over and gave Izuku a tight hug. Izuku then narrowed his eyes and stared at the crying woman confused. Her scent was familial, which made no sense. Nira was his mother, Maybe this was his human mother. Izuku, getting uncomfortable, pushed the sobbing woman off him and stared at her, her gaze confused. "Who are you?" Izuku asked. The woman's eyes widened in shock, hoping Izuku was lying. "Izuku, it's me, your mom," said the woman, lips quivering as she was holding back another bout of tears. "I'm sorry, I don't remember you," said Izuku with twinge of guilt. "This is your human mother, Izuku," sighed Jekyll. The mother looked to Jekyll confused. "What do you mean by human mother?" "Izuku is no longer a mere human," exclaimed Jekyll with a hint of pride. "He has been enhanced and made better by our true mother, Nira." "Izuku is still my son, though," said the woman sadly, and looked back to Izuku. "It breaks my heart that you don't remember me, but that isn't going to stop me. We can start over, and maybe then some of your memories can come back." Jekyll scoffed, "Do what you want," but Nira made sure those past memories were erased. The woman just glared at Jekyll before returning her gaze to Izuku, softening. "I guess then what is your name then, ma'am?" asked Izuku. "Midoriya Inko," said Inko. "I will try and visit you as much as I can, okay?" Inko then patted Izuku's head and started to leave the cage, nodding to the man in the trench coat as she left. Izuku then touched the spot on his head, confused, but was also happy and sad about the kind touch. "Now that mess has been settled, why don't we get things started, Nizu?" said Jekyll, looking to the mouse bear creature. "Yes," replied Nizu, looking to the man in a trench coat. "However, one person hasn't introduced themselves, isn't that right, Tsukachi?" "Izuku," said the man in the trench coat, snapping Izuku out of his thoughts. "My name is Tsukachi Naomasa. I am a detective who took over your case when you went missing 10 years ago." Tsukachi hesitantly made a glance to Jekyll. "I will be making sure you and your human mother get plenty of time together, as well as make sure you are escorted safely to UA and in appropriate living conditions. Now that's out of the way, Izuku, you will need to agree to some rules before attending UA," explained Nizu. "First and foremost is that any harm on your fellow students or teachers outside of lessons will result in you immediately being sent to Tartarus. Two, you're only allowed in your beast form is if you have no choice or during combat lessons. If you do that, then I will need a big intake of raw food to keep up this form," interrupted Izuku. "Which I am well aware thanks to Jekyll here," said Nizu. "So we are already prepared said meals for the future, which we'll be having in at a secluded section of the cafeteria so that you can be easily monitored. Lastly is just a confirmation from you personally that you truly wish to be a hero of your own choice." "Yes," replied Izuku immediately. "That's the whole reason I wanted Nira to make me better." Nizu nodded and then looked at Tsukachi, and he answered, "What he said is the truth, Nizu." "Interesting, a truth detector quirk," thought Izuku. "Makes sense for a detective. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get you dressed and headed off to your first class," exclaimed Nizu as he started to exit the room with a little pep in his step. Honestly, he was quite excited on how things would turn out despite the circumstances. "Your attention, class, but I have an announcement," exclaimed Aizawa as he stood in front of a podium in front of his students. "Starting today, you will be having a new student attend, as well as his guardian as his SCRT and guard. You may come in now, XiyakaHex Midoriya." With that, Izuku walked into the classroom, followed by Jekyll, who glared at Aizawa. "I told you his family name is just Hex, not Midoriya," argued Jekyll. "I will continue to call him Midoriya until it is legally changed," challenged Aizawa. "And you can't stop me." While the two adults in the room passively argued, Izuku looked at all the whole class he had attempted not more than a day or so ago tried to hunt. All except for one spiky hair red-eyed boy had either shocked or fearful looks on their faces. Izuku could not wait to start learning to be a hero with his tail wagging. "Aizawa-sensei, please tell me you are joking, right?" Came a nervous laugh from a boy with blonde with black lighting streak. "Kaminari, I don't think I ever joke." Aizawa deadpanned. "Midoriya is part of a reform program just put into place by Principal Nizu. Jekyll here is his guard. He is to make sure Midoriya is not injured outside of training, and so that Midoriya does not injure any of you outside of training. Midoriya, you will be sitting in seat 18 next to Bakugo and Mineta." Aizawa then pointed to the empty seat next to the spiky blonde with red eyes, Kakin. Izuku's mind alerted. and a short boy with purple ball for hair was practically dripping with fear. Izuku then happily got to his seat with Jekyll right behind him, who went to a chair at the back of the class while handing Izuku his backpack. Izuku noticed that Bakugo was glaring daggers at him, but Izuku could not keep his eyes from Mineta, who started to violently shake in his seat as Izuku started to drool a little. "I know it is tempting, little Izu," said Jekyll a little amused, "but no, you already know the rules you were given." Izuku snapped out of his stare and blushed with embarrassment, the green scales on his face darkening as he quickly pulled out a notebook and pen. Mineta's shivering only seemed to increase. "Now on another note, the sports festival is coming up," announced Aizawa. "Wait, hold up," spoke up the boy named Kaminari. "That sounds like something villains would try to infiltrate, isn't it? Will it be all right?" "On the contrary, since we're going ahead with the festival, it means that the school is confident it has all its ducks in a row when it comes to its crisis control now," explained Aizawa. "I hear police presence will be 5 times bigger than normal, for example. What you all should be thinking is, what a huge chance the Academy's sports festival presents for you all, except for Midoriya, however. It has been decided, due to your power and circumstances, that you will be sitting out." Izuku wilted a little that he would not be able to participate, but it did make sense. He was able to face All Might, and news of what he is was probably already making people nervous that he was attending UA. "What? Is the commission afraid that my little Izu could beat all of UA's little heroes?" grinned Jekyll. Aizawa just stared at Jekyll before answering. "No, the commission and UA staff agreed that not just because he could stand against All Might is that the public now know what Midoriya is and don't want to panic when he can probably defeat most of students here, because he was engineered that way." "Made better, you mean?" Jekyll argued. "Anyhow, even though you will not be able to participate in Midoriya, you can observe from the waiting area, locker rooms, and hallways. I recommend you try and get to know your classmates during that time, as well as any other free time you get." Izuku happily nodded a yes. During basic classes, Izuku happily scribbled down notes, seeing what he had missed or forgotten while being with the Mad Lab family. Every now and then he would peer up to notice Kakin was giving him a silent glare before looking away. Izuku felt that the glare was sadder than angry, he thought while flicking his tongue. Soon the school bell rang, signaling lunch had started. Jekyll led Izuku to the cafeteria kitchen where Lunch Rush, the head cook hero, handed Izuku his plate filled various raw meats. Jekyll had Izuku sit at a table in the far back by themselves. Izuku happily started to eat his still bloody meat by hand when Jekyll spotted a certain blonde with red eyes walking towards their table. Jekyll's eyes narrowed and sat up to walk to Bakugo and block his path. "Out of the way, old man," Bakugo hissed. "You of all human spawns will not be sitting next to my Izuku," Jekyll hissed back. "I can sit wherever the hell I want," argued Bakugo. Jekyll then leaned down near Bakugo's ear and whispered, "I will not allow the human who abandoned and abused my Izuku in the first place to be near him. However, I guess I should thank you at the same time, because if you did not abandon him back then, I would not have had another little brother. Now scram." Bakugo gave a pained look before cursing and turning around. Jekyll then happily went back to his spot next to Izuku, who looked at him a little annoyed. "Now, why did you go and scare him off, Jekyll?" asked Izuku. "I wanted to ask why he was so familiar to me." "Don't worry about it, Izuku here," said Jekyll as he pulled out small lunchbox Zillion's been trying to cook again. He made it fried so the oversized rat could not smell it. Izuku grabbed the box and opened it, revealing 3 slices of unknown fried meat. "It's not as good when cooked, but when you see Zillion next, tell him I said thank you," said Izuku with a giggle as he grabbed one of the slices and happily took a bite. As Izuku ate, he looked around the cafeteria. Every now and then he would catch a couple of stares, quickly looking away, or others trying to avoid his gaze, particularly when it was one of his fellow classmates. Though he did catch the boy with a rock-shaped head glancing at him curiously before frantically looking away. Izuku sighed briefly before taking another bite. He was not surprised no one else would come and try and talk to him after Jekyll scared off Kakin. Not too much longer the bell rang, and classes resumed. Izuku was sucked into his note, taking while Jekyll happily watched from the back of the class until the final bell rang for the day. Izuku's classmates seemed more than ready to leave his general area. The boy named Mineta seemed to disappear with how quickly pretty much he got up from his seat. Jekyll walked up Izuku while glaring at Bakugo, sending him a silent warning to not approach. Bakugo only scoffed as he got up from his seat, sending a quick glance to Izuku before heading towards the door. "I will lead you to the dorm you all be living at," said Jekyll, looking to Izuku once he was satisfied with Bakugo's distance. "Why do you not like him, Jekyll?" asked Izuku. "I just want to know him. Clearly I knew him from before and it's bugging me." "And what have I told you about the you from before?" said Jekyll. Izuku sighed, a little annoyed that there is no use of the before as the mean now is better, but something is telling me that I should talk to him. Jekyll hummed in thought for a moment before answering, "Maybe if I decide that he has proven that he will not harm you." With a defeated sigh, Izuku replied, "Fine, but I will eventually talk to him with or without your approval. I'm not a hatchling anymore." "You will always be a hatchling to me, my little Izu," chuckled Jekyll, ruffling Izuku's hair, avoiding the nip of the now woken-up stalk. "Now, let us go." "Oh," spoke a brown-haired girl blocking the doorway. "What the heck?" Izuku's ears twitched as he noticed there was crowd outside their class doorway and walked over to see what was going on. Jekyll closed behind. "They're crowding the exit," quivered Mineta, looking around, hoping he can find a hole he can escape through. "What are they here for?" "They're scoping out the competition, RETD," answered Bakugo, muscling to the door. "They want to see the gang who came through the villain ambush." Izuku's tail twitched anxiously. "They're checking us out before the big battle. It's pointless to try, so why don't you just FOFF? Why goddamn it, MOB? Don't go calling people you don't know a mob right off the bat," yelled a blue-haired boy with glasses while chopping his hand. "I came to see what you kids are made of." "True," spoke a boy with shaggy purple hair and extremely tired eyes from the crowd, moving to meet Bakugo, "but I didn't think you'd be this arrogant. Heard you all even gain a new pet." Izuku flicked his tongue and his tail twitched. "I'm no pet. Are all the kids enrolled at the Department of Heroics this way?" The purple-haired boy continued. "I'm a bit disillusioned." "So that is it, huh?" The purple-haired boy then looked to Izuku and Jekyll, who was looking more and more irritated with the tired-looking boy. "So, you are the one. A's pet villain. You better hope your owners know what they're doing or their spots in the heroic course will be taken. I'm going to pull the rug out from under all the heroic course kids while they are on their high horses. Consider it a declaration of war." The tired boy then walked away from the class door and strolled down the hallway. Izuku watched, a little annoyed with being called a pet, but wondered, why does he want to get into the heroics course so badly? I'm curious. "Let's finally be on our way, Izuku, before I accidentally do something," said Jekyll, not trying to hide his irritation as he led Izuku out of the classroom and away from the crowd. The crowd easily moving out of Jekyll's way, avoiding his angry gaze. As they walked, Izuku caught the surrounding whispers as they passed. "Hey, isn't that the Numu thing that took on All Might?" one group whispered. "Why the hell isn't it in Tartarus?" whispered another. "Wasn't it some kind of weird experiment?" passed another whisper. "The hell is the principal thinking? Can he even control it?" "Shush, I think he heard us," shushed another. "I think I saw his ears twitch." Izuku sighed and looked down and faced Jekyll's back. "I saw this coming when I wanted to be made better and become a hero, but the words still hurt." As they left the building, Izuku spotted the purple-haired boy again, watching him, his serious face earlier gone to a soft and almost sympathetic look towards Izuku before turning around and heading in the opposite direction. Jekyll led Izuku to a brown building named Heights Alliance. As they entered the building, Izuku looked around curiously, taking in the new scents as he flicked his tongue. They had entered an elevator to head to the second floor. While they waited in the elevator, Jekyll spoke up. "You still have that bad habit of putting yourself down, little Izu." Izuku gave a little chuckle in response. "So you noticed? I can't seem to help it. I hear their words, and it hurts because I want to be a hero, and they already see me as either a villain or some kind of beast to be tamed or locked away. They're humans, Izu, and it's only been the first day, said Jekyll, trying to comfort his little Izu with a smile. "They're stubborn. It's going to take a lot of work to change their minds. But I know you can do it, as you could be just as if not more so stubborn." The elevator stopped, and Jekyll led Izuku to one of the dorm rooms. "Now, my little Izu gets some sleep these next weeks before the sports festival. Won't be easy," said Jekyll, opening the door. "But I won't be participating," asked Izuku. "That doesn't mean you can slack on your studies or training," smiled Jekyll. "While your classmates will be training for the festival, we will be continuing your flexibility training we left off on back at the lab with supervision from Aizawa. Too bad we don't have Zillion here to spare with you." Izuku gave a groan. "That's going to be even harder now that real body is bulkier and heavier." Jekyll chuckled. "Well, it's a good thing that we will be starting that tomorrow. Now go get some sleep." "All right. Good night, Jekyll," said Izuku as he walked into the bare room with just a desk and twin-size bed. Maybe he will be able to decorate the room at some point. Hopefully he can convince Jekyll to get his heated mat from his room at the lab for winter. "Good night, my little hatchling. If you need me, I will be on the first floor with any of the hero guards for the night," said Jekyll, a large and soft smile on his face as he closed the door. 2 weeks had passed relatively quick thanks to the training and schooling occupying Izuku's time. The other students still kept their distance from Izuku, with the exception of Bakugo, who still made attempts to interact with Izuku, sadly failing as Jekyll got in the way, constantly stating he had to prove himself first. Unfortunately, this made Izuku extremely lonely with only Jekyll and his teacher Aizawa to interact with. With the sports festival finally here, he hopes maybe he can at least make one friend during this event. The UA Sports Festival has begun. "Everybody are you ready?" yelled the voice hero Present Mike, a man with blonde hair that been gelled up, making him look like a human cockatiel. "Gather round mass media. This year, all your favorite high school kids will let their youth run free like a bucking bronco once again." As the festivities were going on outside the grand arena, Izuku, Jekyll, and the rest of Class 1A were in their waiting room, getting ready for the event. "Everyone, are your preparations complete?" announced the boy with glasses named Tenya Ida. "We're set to enter in no time." Izuku sighed as he sat with Jekyll at a table by themselves. Izuku was playing with his tail, passing the time, while Jekyll looked at him a little concerned. "Still upset that you can't participate?" asked Jekyll. "Yeah," answered Izuku, letting out another sigh. "Why don't you interact and get to know your classmates a bit more?" advised Jekyll. With the exception of that Bakugo boy, of course, Izuku gave a quick glare before answering, "We're never going to let up on that, are you?" "The human brat still has yet to prove himself," huffed Jekyll. "Well, I don't want to interrupt their concentration at the moment," sighed Izuku. "They've got to go out to the stadium any minute now." Jekyll watched Izuku as he watched his fellow classmates hype themselves up for the festival with a little disappointment and loneliness in his eyes. "Well, if anything, you could try to make friends with them during the lunch break, or with any of them that get disqualified," sighs Jekyll. "That's true," says Izuku, giving a small smile. "All right, everyone, we're heading out," announced Ida. With that, everyone except Izuku and Jekyll started to make their way to stadium. Once all of his fellow classmates had left Izuku, and Jekyll turned to watch the event on the TV that was installed into the wall of the waiting room. "The UA Sports Festival," announced Present Mike through the TV, where the hero worlds inchoate little eggs and aim for each other's throats and the top. "Our grand yearly melee." Jekyll grimaced at the blonde hero's unnecessary loudness. "You know, Izu, for the longest time I'd thought Nira had somehow snuck bird DNA into that hero," said Jekyll. "Did she?" asked Izuku, curious. "Sadly, no, because if she did, he'd be more tolerable," sighed Jekyll. "Maybe," said Izuku, genuinely curious, focusing back to the TV. "And let me guess," continued Present Mike, "all you miscreants came to see them, right?" The freshly formed miracle stars that shrugged off a mass villain assault with wills of steel. The camera then focused on one of the entrances to the stadium. "The Department of Heroics freshman class," announced Present Mike. "You're here for Class 1A, right?" As Present Mike announced them, Izuku's classmates walked out to the stadium confidently. Izuku made a giggle as he watched his classmates, his tail happily wagging. They look so cool, Jekyll. I guess. Jekyll huffed. And following is Class B. Here come Classes C, D, and E from the Department of General Education, said Present Mike as he continued to announce the rest of the freshman classes. Now, fair play, yelled a woman wearing a DMNTRX outfit on a podium near the stadium, cracking her flogger. Jekyll, why is that hero naked? Asked Izuku nervously, though it doesn't look like she has anything on her bub. Do not all humans have them? Is she actually a male? Jekyll was almost startled out of his seat before answering. No, she is just wearing what's called a skin suit to make it look like she's not wearing anything. Also, her hero name is Midnight. She's one of your teachers. That's weird. It's hardly protecting her body, said Izuku, still curious. Does it have something to do with her quirk? It doesn't look like she has scales or rock-like skin to protect her. Izuku, who taught you biology? Asked Jekyll. Mr. Hyde, why? Answered Izuku innocently. I'm going to kill him, said Jekyll. Please don't, Jekyll. It took Nira forever to stitch him back together last time, pouted Izuku. I don't care, said Jekyll with a scowl. Now, player REP. Announced Midnight, but Kogu Katsuki of one. Katsuki the started to walk up to the podium with Midnight. Jekyll, look, it's Kakin. He is our representative. Izuku happily announced. Huh, I guess he's a lot smarter than he looks, chuckled Jekyll. Sensei, said Katsuki through the mic. I'm going to place first. As Katsuki made the challenge, the rest of the classes yelled in anger, issuing their own challenges. Nope, he is still just as much of an idiot I think he is, chuckled Jekyll. Jekyll, replied Izuku annoyed. Katsuki then walked off the podium with a satisfied grin back to his class. Midnight then walked back to the microphone with a nervous cough. Onto the preliminaries, as they're called, announced Midnight as a holographic screen appeared behind her. Lots of fine folk end up choking on their tears here every year. And this year's first round of Destiny is this. On the screen behind Midnight in big bold letters were the words, Obstacle Race. Oh, that will be interesting, said Izuku, a little glitter to his serpentine eyes. I hope my classmates go all out so I can see and analyze their quirks. Makes me wish you brought my laptop with you, Jekyll. I already told you they wouldn't let for security reasons, sighed Jekyll. But you could have still gotten me at least a notebook and pen. Pouted Izuku. As Izuku watched all the students gather at the race entrance, Izuku thought he heard scratching on the ceiling pipes, but ignored it as he was too focused on watching his fellow students. As the students gathered at the race's entrance gate, a tall boy by the name of Kodakoji with rock-shaped head stands nervously at the back of the group. What should I do? Thinks Koda as he stutters in his thoughts. Well, didn't S say. I couldn't ask for H help since it will be part of my Q quirk as long as I stay W within the bounds of the R race. With a nervous sigh and whispers out, is there anyone out there that C can H help me with the obstacle course? Koda then was startled by the sound of chittering that sounded like laughter. Mice, thought Koda. P please, let it not be insects. Izuku's and Jekyll's ears twitch as if they heard something in the distance. Jekyll lets out a deep sigh as quickly grabbed Izuku's shoulder, forcing him in his seat, while Izuku was quickly trying to leave. I know you heard it, Izuku. It doesn't mean you have to follow it immediately, sighed Jekyll. But it was one of my classmates, Jekyll, said Izuku with worry on his face, speckles of scales starting to emerge on his face. He was calling for help. Yes, and what you're feeling is not the one to help, explained Jekyll, but the effects of his quirk. You haven't noticed that you started to shift back to your real form, have you? Izuku looked at Jekyll surprised before looking at his arms where a couple of scales have started to grow. Weird, normally, I can tell if I'm shifting or shedding. What does his quirk do? Thankfully, I requested Nizu to give me basic info on all your classmates, explained Jekyll. That quirk you felt was from Kodakoji. He can basically control animals through voice commands. You know, Nira likes to add a certain percentage of animal DNA to family members, right? That makes sense, as I have various reptilian DNA, while you only have a little Jekyll, pondered Izuku. Don't worry, brother, the colony will help the boy out with your permission, of course, yawned a sleepy voice in both Izuku's and Jekyll's minds. Both looked up to see a small snow-white, rat-like creature sleepily yawning and swishing its scaly tail lazily on the ceiling pipe. Great, I had a feeling Nira and Mr. Hyde would let you pest help keep an eye on Izuku, groaned Jekyll. Mr. Hyde only agreed just so you pest would stop switching his foot pads with squeakers from Chew Toys. Theta, are you and the whole colony here? Said Izuku, excited. Sadly, no, Izuku, only a small portion of the colony is here, said Theta telepathically as she jumped down from the pipe to land on Izuku's head and proceeded to unceremoniously kick the poor stalk off Izuku's head. This is my spot, Scrap. Jekyll had caught the stalk, who squeaked in anger and was carefully placed in Jekyll's coat pocket. Theta huffed as she curled into a ball in Izuku's hair. You would also like to know that Alpha and Beta are here as well, said Theta. They went to help that classmate of yours, if you will still let them do that. Yes. Please tell them to help him out. He sounded pretty scared, replied Izuku. I will relay that to them then. Give me one moment to send the signal, yawned Theta before looking like she had fallen asleep. Before Coda looked like an army of black and green rat creatures with permanent grins. Some even had wings. Though two out of the whole group were slightly different. One had horns, wings, and a dagger tail, while occasionally puffing out bits of smoke. The other was a foot taller than the rest, with red slash marks on its eyes and a green mohawk of fur on its head. Name's Alpha, and this is Beta, said the larger creature. Brother Izuku just gave us the okay to help. Wait, you know, Izuku, stuttered Coda. What animals are why you guys? Well, we're not natural animals, but we nearly have 100% of various animal DNA, squeaked Beta. Plus, you're one of the few people that can understand us without Theta's telepathy or anyone from the lab to translate. Okay, if you promise not to hurt anyone, said Coda. Aw, that's no fun, complained Alpha. But all right, let me give you a rundown of our quirks before this thing starts, which looks to be soon. Also, as far as what we're called, we're the trickiest of the lab's creatures, gremlins. Start, announced Present Mike, as all the students then started to race through the narrow passageway that was the gate. Everyone quickly became stuck as they started to push and shove to get through. Izuku excitedly watched as a red and white split-haired boy named Shoto Todoroki was the first to break through the crowd by sliding on an ice path made from his quirk. Shortly after was Kakin, and not long after was most of his class, along with the purple-haired boy that had challenged his class. Out of our way, yelled Alpha as he broke through, carrying Coda with Beta on his head, sending out puffs of fire at students that got too close, along with most of the colony close behind. Alpha, they can't understand you, sighed Beta. Couple of minutes before the start, so here's the plan, explained Alpha. One of my quirks is super strength, so all you gotta do is relax as I literally carry you through this whole race. Beta, you keep students from getting too close. The rest of the colony will destroy or make a path for anything that's in our way. Is that even allowed? Stuttered Coda. If it wasn't allowed, it would be somewhere in the rules, right? Asked Alpha, grinning with confidence. I guess so, answered Coda, a little unsure of Alpha's plan. Present. Suddenly the Mineta boy was knocked to the side by a massive robot. Here comes the obstacles, and so suddenly, announced Present Mike, and from the very outset, the very first barrier will be a Robo Inferno. Todoroki was the first to pass through by freezing all the nearby robots, causing them to collapse. Wow, he's so efficient, Jekyll, exclaimed Izuku happily while cheering for Coda and the gremlins. He hasn't even used the other half of his quirk. I wonder why, questioned Jekyll. He'd be even more efficient if he did. That's true, said Izuku. I'll have to ask him when I get the chance. 1. Ace Todoroki has forged ahead and blocked the others in one fell swoop. Yelled Present Mike, that's kinda harsh. DMN, that kid seems tough. Thought Alpha, time to pick up the pace. Groups 1 and 2 sabotage those robots. Ordered Alpha. They should be nothing compared to Neo and Nira's contraptions. The colony then split off into 2 different directions and crawled up the robots on both sides of Alpha. Gremlins then squeezed into the joints and cracks of the robots, chewing and tearing off important electrical circuits, causing the robots to spark and collapse. The hell are those things? Announced Present Mike. They don't seem to be normal rats. Are they stealing parts? As gremlins left the downed robots, some brought cables, circuit boards, and one was even dragging a large metal piece. "I don't think they are normal rats," said Izawa, narrowing his eyes. "I'll have to talk to Nizu if this is allowed if he qualifies after the race." Suddenly, a bunch of explosions pass above Alpha and the colony. Bakugo, along with two other students of Class 1A, a boy with tape dispensers for elbows, Ciro Hanta, and a boy with a crow-shaped head using a shadow bird-like creature named Tokoyami Fumikic. SHD were already falling behind. Thought Alpha, panicking. "Well, if the first barrier was such a cinch," announced Present Mike, "then what do you think of the second? You fall, then you're out. If you don't like that idea, maybe you can crawl." It's the fall. In front of Alpha and the gremlins was a deep chasm with pillars connected by rope leading to the other side. By the time Alpha and the colony had gotten to the chasm, the rest of Class 1, it had already crossed the chasm, including a girl with pink hair and goggles. "Gremlins, make a bridge," ordered Alpha. The colony then formed a bridge across the chasm, using the ground gremlins as planks and the flyers as support. Alpha easily ran across the makeshift bridge while carrying Koda. As Alpha made it across the gremlin bridge, it started to disassemble, causing students fall off, those who thought using the bridge would be an easy win. "And now we come to the hidden final barrier," yelled Present Mike as Todoroki arrived at the seemingly barren field. Its true form is none other than the Mind Field. As Alpha approached the start of the field, Todoroki and Bakugo had already made it across the field and were heading for the finish line. Alpha grinned. "All right, gremlins, spread out and have some fun." All the gremlins then raced across the field, purposely setting the mines off, causing gremlins to fly in every direction with a giggle like squeaks. Alpha then raced across the field with a smug grin on his face. However, students were starting to easily pass them as Present Mike had just announced that Todoroki finished first while Bakugo finished second. "The hell, how is everyone passing us?" asked Alpha. "Well, you may have super strength, Alpha, but that doesn't mean you have super speed," answered Beta. "Also, it doesn't help we have really short legs, and that we kind of left an opening for everyone else." Beta was pointing behind him where the rest of the students were running through the fields carefree as a gremlin happily set off the last mine, causing it fly past Koda with a happy giggle. "Well, said Alpha as they crossed the finish line. As they passed the finish line, Midnight started to announce the results. "The top 42 have earned the right to advance," announced Midnight, pointing to the hollow screen. Alpha quickly scanned the board and frowned, letting out a low-pitched growl. They had come in 43rd, one placement off. "Phew-uck," screeched Alpha, causing Koda to jump in surprise. "It's okay, Alpha." "YUT tried," stuttered Koda, to "thank you." Alpha sighed as he put Koda down before shyly replying, "Why, you're welcome. I guess we should go meet up with Jekyll and Izuku." Colony disperse. The colony, with the exception of Alpha and Beta, scattered off in different directions, disappearing into various dark cracks and corners, causing many students and audience members to gasp and shriek in surprise. "Well," coughed Midnight, trying to grab the audience's attention. "I'm sorry for the students that failed, but take heart. The festival showstopper is still being prepared." As Midnight was announcing the next event, as a human cavalry battle, Alpha and Beta headed to the waiting room where Jekyll and Izuku were staying in. Koda quickly ran up behind them, panting. "Wait, see, can I come with you?" asked Koda. "I don't really have anywhere else to go at the moment." Alpha looked at Koda with a big grin. "Sure thing. Of course," exclaimed Beta. "I'm sure Izuku would like to get to know you better." So, with Alpha giving directions on Koda's shoulder with Beta starting to drift off into a nap on Koda's head, they ventured to Class 1A's waiting room. As Jekyll and Izuku were waiting for the next event to start, there was a light knock at the door. "Oh, it's Alpha, Beta, and that boy they helped," yawned Theta, poking her head out of Izuku's bushy hair. "Come on, Koda, just open the door," said Alpha on the other side of the door. Theta already let them know we arrived. There was a quiet stuttering "oh" before the door opened to reveal the three. Jekyll and Izuku turned to see the newcomers. Izuku giving a happy wave and "hello. Hello, you must be Koda. said Izuku, happily patting the chair next to him. Come sit by me, Jekyll. Can be a little scary at first. Hey, what that's supposed to mean? Said Jekyll in shock. Well, if I remember right, Jekyll, Izuku explained, when I first meet you, you had gotten into trouble with Nira, causing her to order the nearest creature, sibling, to hit you hard enough to cause your head to fall off. Koda hesitated before fully sitting down into the chair and asked why your H-head fell off. Yep, it's a side effect of Neo's quirk that was used on his neck, explained Izuku. It's the reason for the stitches on his neck. He's alive, but his head isn't full attached and can fall off if not careful. Oh, said Koda with a nervous chuckle. Izuku then noticed Koda's sudden nervousness and looked away a little sad. Sorry, I didn't mean to shock you. That sort of thing is normal in the lab. And I forget it's far from normal on the outside, apologized Izuku. It's okay, quickly replied Koda. All of this is probably new to you. So, you probably don't know any better. I guess if it were not for you, I wouldn't have met these guys. Koda pointed to both Alpha and Beta, who were now both napping on his head. Even though it could be a little scary. See, can I ask you something, Koda? Said Izuku, suddenly nervous. What is it? Replied Koda. See, can you be my first friend? Asked Izuku. Well, my first one outside my lab family anyways. Sure, you seem nice, answered Koda with a shy smile, even though you seem a little scary. Sweet, cheered Izuku with a glowing smile. Hopefully the more you know me, the less scary I seem. Great, now have a sibling that I would kill anyone for who can't decide on being a nervous wreck or an overly energetic ball of sunlight, and his now friend who is also a nervous wreck who has very high chance of being able to control some of the more animalistic creatures of the lab. Thought Jekyll as he watched Izuku and his new friend chat with each other. Going to have to test that theory when we get the chance. Time up. Midnight announced through the TV. Now shall we see who our top 4 are. In first, Team Todoroki. Second, Team Deku. Third, Team Shinso. Fourth, Team Inoma. The first 4 teams will move on to the final event. Oh, wow, that much time had passed already, said Izuku, just realizing they had missed a whole event while chatting with Koda. I guess so, commented Koda, but I'm not surprised with who won, honestly, though that general ed student has gotten far. Yeah, wonder what kind of quirk it is, wondered Izuku. I think it might be some type of mental or control quirk, pondered Koda. Or maybe even both, commented Izuku with sparkles in his eyes, wondering the possibilities. The event will be after an hour's lunch break. Announced Present Mike. See you then. Hey, Eraserhead, let's go get some food. No, I need to check on something, Aizawa deadpanned. Said Present Mike sadly. I want to have some of the food from the stalls, said Izuku sadly, but I can't leave this area. Jekyll sighed, staring at the puppy dog eyes Izuku was giving him 60. Fine, as long and Theta, Alpha, and Beta stay here and watch you, ordered Jekyll. If you can come with me, Koda, and help me, we can get you some food too. Okay, sure, replied Koda. After Jekyll and Koda left, Izuku tiptoed to the door and peeked out. Okay, time to explore, whispered Izuku with Theta on his head and Alpha and Beta on his shoulders. Well, at least in the areas I'm allowed to be in. Izuku and the gremlins were wandering around the various hallways of the stadium. They were following and attempting to start conversations with Izuku's fellow classmates. However, at every attempt, the students would either shy away from them or outright ignore and flee. As Izuku watched his latest attempt to try to make another friend flee, something caught his attention, causing his ears to twitch. What is it, Izuku? Theta. I hear a voice, answered Izuku. I think it's All Might and someone else. That makes me a little curious, said Beta. Come on, Izuku, let's check it out, said Alpha. Yeah, replied Izuku as he quickly made his way to where the voices were heard. As they approached the hallway, Izuku began to tiptoe to the entrance and peek around the corner. There, standing in the hallway, was All Might, in a business suit with his iconic smile, talking to a large gruff man using their fire quirk as facial hair, glaring down the symbol of peace. Endeavor, hissed Alpha. One of the worst heroes I've ever seen, scowled Theta. Oh, how so, Theta? Whispered Izuku. Nira had my colony, and I endeavor to find a way to either kill him or at the very least severely sabotage and ruin his career, explained Theta What we found infuriated the whole lab, not just Nira. The poor excuse of a living creature was abusing his family. "What?" said Izuku, barely able to keep himself from yelling. Theta, shut up for a second, hushed Alpha. "I'm trying to listen to their conversation. Continue after." Izuku sighed, wanting to know more, but nodded in agreement before focusing on All Might and Endeavor's conversation. "Your son," said All Might, "young Todoroki, was able to make such a great showing even without using half of his power. You must have taught him well." "What are you getting at?" growled Endeavor. "I mean it," explained All Might. "I want to know. I'm dying for your how-to on raising the next gen." Endeavor huffed. "You think I'll teach you anything? You'll never quit that easy-breezy attitude of yours, will you?" "How perfectly annoying." "My bad. Just remember, you fool," Endeavor grinned, "that someday I'll have made him a hero that shall surpass you. That is the very reason I made that boy." "What?" "The ridiculous cretin is currently going through his rebellious phase right now. But he will surpass you. I'll make him." As Endeavor started to walk away, leaving All Might in a state of shock, Izuku heard a loud and annoyed sigh from behind him. Izuku looked behind him to find Jekyll with Koda carrying a large bag of food. Izuku and the gremlins gave Jekyll a very sheepish smile. "Why am I not surprised?" sighed Jekyll. "Was it your idea, Izuku, or was it the gremlins this time?" Just then Endeavor rounded the corner as Alpha and the other two gremlins started to hiss at him. "Oh, you," huffs Endeavor. "You're the beast Niza decided to adopt. If only they would have let you participate in the sports festival. That way my Shoto would be able to destroy you, proving himself further that he is to be the one to surpass All Might." "Beast," growled Jekyll. "All I see is a runt that should have been devoured by their mother." Izuku quivered at the glare Jekyll and Endeavor were giving each other. He quickly moved to be behind Jekyll with Koda, who was also quivering in fear. "Repeat that again, villain," growled Endeavor. No, I will not." "Then again, with your ego, I wouldn't be surprised if your ears were deformed as well." The two adults were almost nose to nose at this point, their glares practically giving off sparks. Then Endeavor spoke up before starting to move past the group. "You're lucky, villain, that you and your little group have a peace agreement on UA grounds. The moment you and your beast step off UA grounds, I will not hesitate to put you both where you belong. You go ahead and try that," hissed Jekyll. "See what happens." As Endeavor passed Izuku and Koda, Izuku turned around to face Endeavor. He worked up the courage, and Izuku spoke up. A hiss was in his voice, and his pupils had thinned to only slivers. "A hatchling, though genetically similar to their parent, they are still two separate creatures. So, the same can be said between you and Shoto. He is not you." Endeavor huffed one last time before disappearing down the hallway. Back in 1A's waiting room, Izuku was sprawled out onto the tables having a mini freakout. That W's scary," stuttered Izuku. "T thought he was going to attack me F for sure after all the taunting Jekyll did." "I was hoping for that actually," said Jekyll. "If he did, I wouldn't get into trouble for attacking back." "What?" yelled Izuku in shock. "No way, Jekyll, that's mean of you." It's okay, Izuku," said Koda, trying to comfort Izuku by handing him a smoked turkey leg. Izuku happily accepted the turkey leg with a soft thank you before lifting his head back and swallowed the leg whole. Koda watched surprised and a little intrigued and asked, "How much is your body? I is snake-like, Izuku." "Oh, well, thanks to Nira, pretty much my whole body is snake or reptile-like in some way. Even in this form, externally I may seem more human-like, but internally it is still primarily reptilian. Cold-blooded and all." That's actually kind of cool. I've always wondered about reptiles as they're not very chatty creatures, but they make good company. Every single one that I have meet is always willing to listen to me about my day. "Oh, Theta, before I forget, was there more to your story with that mission?" asked Izuku. "Yes, actually," said Theta. "While we were spying at the Todoroki household, there was a terrible accident with their family. I had forgotten Mother had sent you and your colony to that runt hero's household," commented Jekyll. "The accident was with the Todoroki's eldest son. The poor hatchling had lost control of his quirk and had nearly died, being burned alive. Thinking that his hatchling had died, Endeavor had fled the scene. My colony and I then decided to act by retrieving the hatchling, taking him straight to Nira so that he can heal. She was able to stabilize his condition so that he could recover. "Have I met him, Theta?" asked Izuku. Theta shook her head. No, as soon as he was conscious and able to move. Nira had offered him to stay with the lab and become part of the family. If he agreed, she would fix his scars without having to worry about the usual side effects that come with her quirk. He thanked Nira, but refused, saying he needed to figure things out and wanted to keep the scars as a reminder. He also asked Nira to leave Endeavor to him, as he was his problem. After that, Nira dropped all missions involving Endeavor to respect his wishes. Though Nira did manage to convince him to take stock with him, just so that Nira could make sure that he was always safe. That's horrible, gasped Koda, tears running down his face. Must have been when I was out on a mission with Zillion, pondered Jekyll. All the more reason not to let Shoto be dragged down by his father, said Izuku with confidence. I need to let Shoto know he is not his father, and that he can surpass anyone his own way, with both of his ice and fire. Why, yeah, agreed Koda. You're not leaving this room without an SCRT this time, Izuku, glared Jekyll. And you're going to have to wait anyways. The tournament is about to start. Oh, chuckled Izuku, giving Jekyll a nervous grin. Don't worry, I'll see if we can catch him in between matches, so you can give him a pep talk, sighed Jekyll before smiling and ruffling Izuku's mess of green curls. Jekyll, complained Izuku, it took me forever to get my curls decent, wife. Both Jekyll and Koda only laughed at Izuku's pain, as on the TV screen the tournament was just announced to be starting soon. Now we're going to do a drawing to determine the pairings, announced Midnight. The 16 participant for the tournament can choose to abstain from the recreational events if they so choose. There's no problem in wanting to rest and saving your energy. So, let's begin with the team that got first place. Suddenly a boy with blonde hair and a long thick tail raised their hand. According to Jekyll, his name is Ojiro. Please excuse me. I don't want to participate. Most of the class then spoke up to argue on why, or that he should stay and participate. I know this is a rare opportunity, and to walk away would be stupid. However, everyone gave their best to get this far, and I wasn't able to do the same. Suddenly another boy spoke up. He was short with light blue hair. Theta explained that he was from Class 1B, Shota. I agree and would like to resign as well. What innocent words. Praised Midnight seductively. I like them. I accept Shota and Ojiro's resignations. Shiozaki and Tetsu will be replacing them. The TV then changed to show the pairings. Monoma versus Shinso Todoroki versus Shiro Ida versus Hatsuma Shido versus Aoyama Tokumi versus Kirishima Uraraka versus Bakugu, while the students left the field. Cementos, a hero with the ability to control cement, created an arena for the tournament. Once finished and gave the okay to Midnight. The first contestants walked onto the arena. Shinso was the boy who had confronted 1A before the start of the festival. He looked at his opponent with determination despite his tired eyes. This seems like it'll be interesting, said Jekyll. He's the only one out of the general ed students to make it this far. Izuku and Koda nodded in agreement. The blonde, named Monoma, then spoke up with a smug grin. Well, this should be easy. You probably only got this far out of sheer luck. I might not even need to use my quirk. Begin, announced Midnight. Really? You're a lot of talk for someone in 1B, taunted Shinso. That doesn't make you much better than general ed students. Hell, that means you just barely made it into the hero course. Honestly, it means you'll just be some unknown second-rate hero. Say the dash, began Monoma until his eyes dulled and stood still as a statue. What? Yelled Present Mike. Monoma has completely stopped moving. Oh, how cool, exclaimed Izuku. So, he has a mental quirk, said Jekyll. Now it makes sense why he wants to win the sports festival so badly, said Koda. Why's that? Asked Izuku. WL, the entrance exam, sadly kind of caters to powerful and flashy quirks. I was barely able to pass by getting a lot of rescue points rather than villain points. The festival is a way for people with less flashy quirks to have a chance at getting in the hero course. That's kind of cool. That still makes the entrance exam really unfair, though. I would definitely say he has some kind of brainwashing quirk, pondered Jekyll as he pointed to the screen watch. Bing, said Shinso. It must have been really nice to have been blessed their Monoma. Now about face and walk out of bounds. Monoma then wordlessly turned around and walked out of the arena. Monoma's out. Announced midnight, Shinso advances to round 2. Jekyll was humming to himself as he watched Shinso exited the arena, looking even more tired than before, but proud. Behind him was Monoma glaring at Shinso as he also exited. "What are you thinking about Jekyll?" asked Izuku. "I think I'll have a small chat with that." "Shinso boy," answered Jekyll as he stood up and made his way to the door. Before he left, he turned around to glare at Izuku. "And you better stay put this time, Izuku. Koda, if he tries to leave, I give you permission to have the gremlins hold him down." "Okay," stuttered Koda. Jekyll was heading towards the general education's waiting room when he spotted Shinso. With a thin, toothy grin, he spoke up. "Shinso, the boy of the hour. The only student of general ed to make it to the final event. And what do you want?" questioned Shinso. "You don't look like a teacher. You know that this area is off limits, right?" "I'm allowed to be here with the principal's permission." "Okay, again I ask, what do you want?" Shinso narrowed his eyes as he watched Jekyll closely. "You don't exactly look like you're here for just a chat." "No, I dash." Suddenly Jekyll's eyes dulled, and he froze still as a statue, just as Monoma had earlier. However, before Shinso spoke up to give an order, Jekyll's hand quickly moved and shoved his clawed pinky finger into his ear with a sickening squelch. As focus returned to Jekyll's eyes, he stared at Shinso, his smile seemingly more frightening than friendly. He pulled his finger out of his ear and wiped off the BLD with a spare white cloth. "Now, that was really rude of you. Just because someone wants to make a deal with you. You're not exactly helping that villainous image you're so desperate to rid of." Shinso just stood there in shock at what he just witnessed. "Well, at least I have your attention now." Jekyll casually wiped off the remaining BLD from his ear before continuing. "Now, as I was saying, I have a lovely little brother who is desperate for some friends, and if you're willing, a little brother as well. He is the youngest of us, after all." Shinso shook himself out of his shock before answering, What do you mean?" "Easy. I can give you a family that will actually love you for who you are and what you'll be." Shinso was taken aback. "How do you know about my personal life?" "That's a secret. I'll only tell if you agree to become part of my family." Shinso looked away and thought before asking, "You're the guardian who's supposed to be watching that Noma boy. I remember seeing you and him in 1A's classroom. Is he the brother you're talking about?" "Yes, you are correct. Just like you, my brother was ridiculed for his quirk, was deemed useless by his peers. That was until he was rescued by our loving mother and made him better, showing us what real love was like." Now let me think on it. With that, Shinso walking away deep in thought. Before he rounded the corner, Jekyll spoke up. "I'll give you till the end of the festival to think on it. Izuku would love to have a little brother as his partner when he becomes a hero." Shinso then silently disappeared down the hall. "Jekyll, I would appreciate it if you did not go around and try to get my students to join your family," said a chipper voice behind Jekyll. "Ah, I was wondering when you'd show up, Nizu." Jekyll peered behind him to find the rodent principal. "Mother did warn you I would be when she gave you her terms, which, by the way, I had no choice but to accept. However, that was if you had any proof that a student was being neglected, which I do have. A gremlin will stop by your office to deliver the documents and photos." "And when did you have time to do that, pray tell?" "While I was getting food, I had some gremlins investigate my hunch, as it were. It's your own school's fault for not noticing." Nizu sighed in defeat. If only I did not owe so much to Nira. With a final sigh, Nizu walked off. "Then you wouldn't be here today. More than likely still at that subpar lab or dead in a ditch," chuckled Jekyll before heading back to 1A's waiting room. "Jekyll!" Izuku cheered from underneath a large pile of gremlins. Jekyll just gave Izuku a deadpan stare as he entered into the room. "Really, you still tried to leave after I left?" "The matches while you were gone were boring." "I have to admit, they kind of were," said Koda. Well, thank you, Koda, for keeping Izuku here. Praise Jekyll. By the way, Izuku, a little gremlin told me you may have a little brother soon. Izuku made an exaggerated gasp with sparkles in his eyes. Really, I'll finally be a big brother soon. It's not official yet, grinned Jekyll. Is your family adopting someone, Jekyll? Asked Koda. Yep, we're just finalizing some stuff. Wow, congratulations, Izuku, cheered Koda. That expression on little Shinso gave. He is sure to accept, thought Jekyll as Izuku and Koda talked excitedly. I wonder what mother would give him. Snake, bird, or feline. Maybe even all, if his body can handle it. So what did I miss? Asked Jekyll. Not much, said Koda. That Bakugu brat won against the Uraraka chick, explained Alpha as he and the rest of the gremlins climbed off Izuku. Todoroki beat Mr. Tape, while Metalhead versus Rockhead ended up as draw. Since the last match ended in a draw, Shinso was moved up to the finals, said Beta. So, what about the other students? Asked Jekyll. The others were just easily defeated by either Todoroki or Shinso, shrugged Alpha. They'll just leave the Explosion Brat and Todoroki for the semifinals, pondered Jekyll. Todoroki and Bakugu's match is just finishing up from the looks of it, said Kodu, pointing to the TV. Everyone in the room then turned to watch who would win. Bakugu seems to be on his last legs while Todoroki is looking a little frosty, announced Present Mike. Bakugu was furious as shivered from the cold coming off the frozen glaciers that coated the arena, while Todoroki was standing tall and seemed unfazed from the cold, except for the ice patches forming on the left side of his body. Why the F won't you use your damn fire? Yelled Bakugu. Easy, explained Todoroki. 1, I will never use it. 2, it would give you an advantage with that sweat of yours. Whatever, just give me your F all. Do you think I can't take it? Arrogant, yes. Weak, no. Todoroki then sends a wave of ice towards Bakugu, who tries to dodge by propelling himself with his explosions. However, due to the cold, all that comes out are small crackles and pops. Unable to get out of the way, Bakugu is then shoved out of the arena. Bakugu yells out in frustration, while also slinging curses at Todoroki for not giving his all. Huh, that Bakugu brat has a point, said Alpha. A little disappointing that Todoroki wasn't showing off all of his abilities. I'm afraid it may be because it's a similar situation as Shinso, sighed Jekyll. Does that mean Todoroki may become part of the family? Asked Izuku, starting to get excited. I'm afraid not anytime soon. His father sadly has enough money to give people enough reason to not even care. It would also draw too much attention to the lab and the rest of the family. Explained Jekyll. Oh, sighed Izuku. Excuse me, Jekyll, but what do you mean by bringing into the family? Asked Koda. Basically, everyone in the lab is family as they have been adopted by our dear mother Nira. I would imagine Nira would love to adopt dear Todoroki too. Explained Jekyll. I guess that makes sense, said Koda. It does seem like Todoroki's life isn't easy. Koda, do you want to be a part of my family? Asked Izuku. Thank you for the offer, Izuku, but I'm happy and love my current family, chuckled Koda. Hey, final match is finally starting. Chirped Beta. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Announced Present Mike. Welcome to the first year finales. Our up-and-coming hero prodigy, Shudo Todoroki, facing off against the General Ed champion, Hitoshi Shinso. As Present Pick announced their names, said finalists made their way to the arena. So, your number 2's great prodigy. Sneered Shinso. Honestly, from what I can tell, the apple hasn't fallen far from the burning tree. Todoroki furrowed his eyes in response while curling his hands into fists. Ready, start, yelled Midnight. What? Did I strike a nerve there, pretty boy? Scoffed Shinso. What is getting a fast track into the UA Heroes course not enough for you? Todoroki bit back his tongue as he sent out a wave of ice towards Shinso, who barely dodged the glacier. I see you inherited his destructiveness. The only difference is you're using ice. Makes you wonder if that ticking time bomb is right. You must think you're too good for the rest of us to use that precious fire. To you, we must be so weak that it's not even worth your time to even use it. Suddenly, with a wave of his left hand, followed by a strained yell, was a wave of fire headed straight for Shinso. I am nothing like my father. Before Shinso's quirk could take hold, he was flung from the arena by the flames. Shudo Todoroki is the winner. Announced midnight. Yikes. Cringe Beta. I think he pushed a little too far with the goading, said Alpha. No, he would have had Todoroki, only if he was able to dodge the flames, explained Izuku. True, pondered Beta. Well, I should get going and meet with Shinso, said Jekyll. You lot continue to watch Izuku and enjoy the award ceremony. Okay, replied the gremlins. Jekyll was waiting next to the entryway to the arena. There he could see Shinso walking down from the podium with his silver medal. Before Shinso got to Jekyll, Bakugo stopped next to him. What do you want, Brad? Questioned Jekyll. Let me talk to Izuku, said Bakugo. Saying his name is a nice start. However, you still have a lot to prove before you can speak to him. What do I need to do to prove myself then? Simple, actually. Do not harm him in any way. Also, just stay out of our way. We have our reasons. Well, that's vague as F, but fine, I'll do just that if it gives me a chance just to talk. With that, Bakugo left in huff, a little more frustrated than earlier. As soon as Bakugo disappeared down the hall, Shinso walks up to Jekyll. I think that's the calmest I've seen of the walking bomb so far, said Shinso. Really, I'm not surprised, chuckled Jekyll. So, have you decided then? Shinso pauses for a moment before looking at Jekyll with determination. Yes. Then I'll have the gremlins send Nizu the paperwork. Jekyll then places a clawed hand on Shinso's shoulder. Excellent. Now would you like to meet your new brother before we meet with Mother? Yes, I would like to meet him. Let's be off then. I'm sure he's gotten stir-crazy again. Stir-crazy. One of the side effects of Mother, making him better. He ends having a lot of energy build up. He's in one place for too long. So, he ends up with a lot of excess energy. So far, the only one Woe been able to properly wear him out is sparring with Zixus. Who? Another one our brothers. How big is this family? Jekyll just gave large grin and chuckled. You'll see. As they arrive at 1A's waiting room, let's just say you'll never be lonely or weak ever again. I look forward to it. Jekyll. Cheers Izuku as Jekyll and Shinso walk through the door. Izuku was currently wrestling with a large pile of gremlins. What the hell am I looking at? Asked Shinso. It appears we arrived just in time, answered Jekyll. Jekyll, is that him? Is he my new little brother? Asked Izuku, tail swishing left and right excitedly. Koda was calmly sitting in a nearby chair with Theta in his lap, fast asleep, both happily avoiding the wrestle pile. Jekyll lets out a chuckle before answering, Yes, he is my dear Izuku. Izuku then quickly escaped the wrestle pile and walked up to Shinso and grabbed his hands. Shinso flinched at the sudden action. Calm yourself, Izuku, or you're going to scare him, chastised Jekyll. Sorry, apologized Izuku, letting go of Shinso's hands. It's okay. You're just excited, right? Said Shinso. Yep. We're going to have so much fun together, said Izuku excitedly. With you, me, and Koda, we'll be an unstoppable hero team. You think so? Even with a villainous quirk like mine. Especially with a quirk like yours. Koda nodded in agreement. Right. Well, it's nice to meet you, Izuku. Jekyll claps his hands to get everyone's attention. Well, now that all the introductions are out of the way, let's take you back to the dorms, Izuku. It's starting to get late, and I need to take our dear Shinso home and meet the rest of the family. Jekyll then looked to Koda. Are your parents here, Koda, or are they waiting for you at home? At home. They're probably starting to get worried by now, answered Koda. You can tag along until we have to part ways. Just let your parents know that you are on your way. Koda nodded and pulled out his phone, being careful to not wake Theta. With that, the strange group packed up and left for their respective homes for the night. Yes, what is it, Jekyll? I'm in the middle of a surgery, said Nira through a phone Mr. Hyde was holding for her. Nira was arms deep into the chest cavity of a strange red creature with an exposed brain and large bat-like wings. Oh, you know that BSDRD Ujiko needed a little help since he pushed a little too much into one of Nomu again and wanted to be able to salvage it. He's lucky Sensei likes him so much to keep him alive, especially after what he did to my poor little Izuku. Nira paused for a moment to listen to Jekyll and let a large, toothy grin crawl up her cheeks. A new son. Nira put a bloody claw to her chin. His quirk sounds interesting. I know just what to give him. I'll see you soon, Jekyll. Also, Zixus has been antsy if you could either spar with him or convince Niza to take him with you to UA. That way he and Izuku can have a little playtime and burn off their excess energy. I'm just busy dealing with Sensei's requests and Ejiko's stupidity lately. With that, Mr. Hyde hangs up the phone, followed by dozens of excited chitters, growls, and hisses. Yes, my lovely children, you are getting a new brother, and I just can't wait to meet him. If you all would be so lovely and get his room ready. The one next to Izuku's should be perfect for him. As soon as she finished her sentence, there was a stampede of footfalls behind her of all kinds. Mr. Hyde sighed and handed Nira what looked like an enlarged lung. I just hope they're nothing like Jekyll. Last thing we need is another source of my migraines. Nira only chuckled. We shall see. Now help me finish this up and into the stasis tank. I wish to meet my new son as possible and start their needed improvements. The next day of class started with everyone in 1A talking about the sports festival. I got so embarrassed. Everyone was staring at me so intently, said Toru, an invisible girl, except for her clothes. I got consoled with don't worry, called from frickin' elementary school kids, groaned Ciro. The chatter continued until Izawa walked in. Morning, announced the tired pro. Today's Hero Informatics PRD is a little special. It's time to formulate your code names, your hero names. Everyone in the class cheered with excitement. Though despite also being excited, Izuku and Jekyll cringed at everyone's loudness. This is related to the draft nominations by pros yesterday. The nominations will truly start maturing only after you've gained some experience and adapted your fighting skills during your sophomore and senior years. In other words, the nominations you're getting this year are more akin to expressions of interest in your future potential. The tally for nominations are as follows. Izawa taps the blackboard to show the top nominations the class received. Nomination tallies. Todoroki, 4,123 Bakugo, 3,556 Tokoyami, 360 Ida, 301 Kaminari, 272 Yaoyorozu, 108 Kirishima, 68 Uraraka, 20 Ciro, 14. Looking at the list, Izuku was a little sad not seeing Koda's name. It makes sense, thought Izuku with a sigh. He didn't even pass the first round. Izuku wasn't the only with a disappointed sight, some more obvious the others. Based on this, regardless of whether or not you received any nominations, I'll be having you all go get some so-called workplace experience, explained Izawa. Well, you've all dipped a toe into the world of pros, some more intimately than others. However, I think experiencing the activities of a pro firsthand will prove to be more fruitful training than before. Because of that, we need hero name, said Sato, a largely built boy. Of course, placeholder names are fine too, but something appropriate dash. Izawa was explaining until a loud female voice interrupted. Because, if not, it'll be hell from there, announced Midnight as she struts into the classroom. The names you pick now, the names you come to be known by the world. In many cases, they stay that way after becoming pros. Well, she is correct. I'll be having Midnight evaluate your naming sense, since I for sure can't. Deadpanned, Izawa. The way your futures end up will approach the image projected by the names you choose. It's all down to the old phrase, names and natures agree. For example, All Might. Jekyll, what do you think I should call myself? Asked Izuku. Jekyll chuckles. Really? I would have figured you would have had a name this whole time. Kind of, but I wanted your opinion. Oh, what is it? Izuku then leans into and whispers into Jekyll's ear. I think that would work perfectly. Jekyll smiles as he ruffles Izuku's hair. Minus 15 minutes later. All right, it's almost time. For those that are ready, present their names for the class. Announced Midnight. The first to walk up and present was Aoyama, a blonde foreign boy. Here it comes, the name of the sparkling hero. I cannot stop twinkling. Well then, that's a mouthful, thinks Jekyll. If you take out the I and abbreviate it, just can't, it'll be easier to say. Critiqued Midnight. Too right, mademoiselle. Next is Mina, a pink-skinned girl with horns. Right, hey, I'm next. Call me Alien Queen. Wouldn't that be a copyright issue? Or would the movie be too old now? Would it even matter? Wondered Jekyll. Azui, a girl with a frog mutation quirk, raised her hand. Is it okay if I go next? I've known since I was in elementary school what I'd be. Froppy. That one is nice and cute. She seems nice. Maybe we could be friends, thinks Izuku. Now for mine. Announces a spiky red-haired boy named Kirishima. Red Riot. A reference to Crimson Riot, right? Izuku excitedly asks. Why, it is. He's retro, but he's the kind of hero image I'm aiming for, answered Kirishima, a little embarrassed. The other classmates then started to show off their names. Siro with cellophane, Shoji a boy with a tentacle mutation with tentacle, Jiro a girl with an audio jack mutation on her earlobes with earphone jack. Mina changed hers to Pinky. Sato simply went with Sugarman. Ojiro, a boy with a tail mutation, went with Sato's idea and went with Tailman. Kaminari, a boy with blonde hair and a black streak in it, proudly announced Chargebolt. Toru just went with the obvious invisible girl. Yayorozu, a slender girl with long black hair, went with Creedy. Todoroki seemed to not care as much and went with his first name Shudo. Tokoyami, a boy with a crow head mutation, was a little more creative with Tsukuyami. Mineta shakily gave his as grape juice. Koda shyly added his as Anima with Theta on his shoulder, sleepily giving an approving nod. Bakugu was hesitant but calmly announces his as Dynamite. He then momentarily looks at Izuku before sitting back down. Everyone caught off guard by his suddenly calm demeanor before continuing. Uraraka, a girl with short brown hair, gives hers as Uravity. That went smoother than I thought it would, says Midnight. All that's left is Ida and I suppose Izuku. Ida, a tall blue-haired boy with engine exhaust on his legs, is hesitant. Jekyll spots him shaking before he shows his as his first name Tenya. Something's going on there, thinks Jekyll as he quietly waves over a gremlin that's relaxing near Koda and whispers in its ear. Keep an eye on that Ida boy. We don't need a student getting reckless or lashing out. The gremlin nods and goes to hide nearby. Your turn now, Izuku, says Midnight. Izuku happily stands up and announces, I will be Mehen, the guardian serpent. That's really interesting. Like Tokoyami, it's based off of a god. However, it is based off of an Egyptian god, critiques Midnight. Your field training will be 1 week long, explains Aizawa before looking to Jekyll and Izuku. However, Izuku, you will stay here at UA and will be training under Jekyll's and my supervision. Izuku sadly nods in agreement. These are all good workplaces, but those with nominations will receive a personalized list. Pick one. Aizawa continued. Those who didn't will get a list of 40 participating workplaces from across the country. Choose one from the list, then turn them in by the end of the week. After class, so, who do you think you'll intern with, Koda? Asked Izuku. I am not quite sure yet, answers Koda. You should go for something involving rescue, or go with someone who can help you improve in hand-to-hand combat. Chirps Beta from Koda's shoulder. I think rescue fits him best, yawns Theta. Then how about the wild pussycats? You'll get rescue training as well as some physical training, suggested Izuku. I'll think about it, thank you, smiled Koda. While listening to Izuku and Koda talk with the gremlins, Jekyll was closely watching Ida. That boy's going to do something reckless, I just know it. Later that night, Izuku meets with Jekyll outside his room. I know you feel it too, Jekyll. Something's going to happen to one of my classmates, said Izuku nervously. Can you keep an eye on them? Don't worry, my dear little brother. I have scrap spies and gremlins keeping an eye on everyone, reassured Jekyll. Especially Ida, right? He seemed off after the sports festival. Also, what about Koda? I don't want my first friend getting hurt. Jekyll chuckles at his adorable little brother and ruffled his hair. I have 2 of our brothers keeping a close eye on him, and don't you worry about Koda. He has both Beta and Theta keeping him company along with a small portion of gremlins following him around. Izuku nodded, and as he was about to return to his room, Jekyll stops him and carefully pulls out a syringe. Izuku gasps and looks at Jekyll starry-eyed. Another quirk, whispers Izuku. Mother sent it so that you could easily stretch your coils and get some proper exercise, whispered Jekyll. He then moves Izuku so that he is hidden from any possible cameras and inject the syringe into Izuku's neck. Izuku shivers and lets out a quiet and satisfying hiss. For a moment, Izuku is still before speaking. An invisibility quirk based around refracting light in the skin or in my case scales. Let it settle first, and then you could go have a little fun during the night. Izuku nods happily while giving a big fong-filled grin. Love bar. Nira, why the hell are you here? I didn't ask for you. Hissed Tamura. I'm just here to watch the show before visiting Sensei. Grinned Nira, playing with Mr. Hyde, sitting at the bar counter. Across from him by the front door was a tall, thin man, hunched over, armed from head to toe with some sort of blade weapon. So, don't mind me, hero killer Stain, giggled Nira. Continue with your little meeting. So, you want me to join your little gang, growled Stain. What is your goal? First of all, we want to waste All Might. Then we'd like to destroy everything that's not to our liking, explained Tamura. Stain lets out a drawn-out sigh. You're the type I despise the most. What sense is there to bloodlust without a cause? In order to accomplish anything, you need a creed, a mind. Those weaklings who lack both are cold is only natural. Suddenly, Stain runs forward, unsheathing 2 daggers to attack Tamura, only to blocked by Mr. Hyde's metal claws. You're lucky, brat, that you're Nira's boss protege, growled Mr. Hyde. Sorry, Stain. No matter how much I dislike the boy, I can't allow him to die, sighed Nira. Nira Madlab, here of all places. I would have thought you somewhat better than them, hissed Stain before standing back up and sheathing his daggers. Now send me back to Hosu. I'm done here. Send him away, Kirojiri, I'm done with him too, growled Tamura as he stood back up, shoving Mr. Hyde off of himself. Kirojiri complied and opened a portal to send Stain away. As soon as he left, Tamura started scratching his neck in irritation. I'm pissed. I knew this wouldn't work. If I want to destroy SHD, I should be able to just go and destroy it. Nira, let me use some Nomo. No way, not mine, retorted Nira, pulling Mr. Hyde onto her lap. Use Ajikos for your little tantrum. His are brainless fodder. Fine. Kirojiri, send me to the doctor. Let's cause some chaos. Cool. Let me get some popcorn ready first, chirped Nira as she hopped off the stool. Before anyone knew it, the day of internships arrived. The first day with only Aizawa and Jekyll. Izuku was antsy with energy. Jekyll, can you please see? Ask Aizawa-sensei if we can use one of the gyms again, please see. Begged Izuku. I've got so much energy, I'm practically vibrating out of my scales. Jekyll sighed. I would like to, little brother, but Aizawa had been quite adamant on that. We've already used it too much today. There are students outside the hero course that use it. Well, they could just join in on our spares, and then we'd all have fun, pouted Izuku. Oh, my dear, sweet, innocent little brother, they would probably get severely injured in the process with how rough we tend to take it, thought Jekyll with a sigh, but then whispered, plus, you're going to need that energy tonight. Mother sent word that Stain is going to be on the prowl, so that classmate of yours is probably going to need the backup. Not too far away was Aizawa, hidden behind the corner of the hallway, listening in. What are you up to, Jekyll? Later that night with Ida, screams could be heard throughout Hosa City as several Nomu of various sizes and shapes attack citizens and the surrounding buildings. Their eyes seemingly long dead and exposed brains with animalistic screams. Ida was with the hero manual when the attack started. Tenya, let's go quick, ordered the plain-looking hero and ran off in the direction of the chaos. However, Ida did not follow, but instead ran down an alleyway that was right next to them. Farther down the alley was Stain getting ready to kill a hero by the name of Native. So DM in noisy. The dumbass must have arrived then. Groaned Stain. I'll dispose of him later, right now. I'm going to do the things I got to do. Native, unable to move, started to panic as the katana Stain held drew closer to his neck. If you're going to ride the name of hero, then choose your last words. As Stain was about to cut Native's neck, Ida came speeding towards Stain's back. However, sensing Ida's approach, Stain swung his katana directly behind himself, knocking down Ida and his helmet off in the process. A child wearing a suit. Go away. This isn't a place for children. A BLD red scarf and carrying blades all over their body, said Ida as he shakily stood back up. You're the hero killer Stain, right? I've been chasing after you, but to think I would find you this soon. I dash. Ida was then interrupted as Stain pointed his katana to Ida's throat. So those are avenging eyes. Heed the following words. If the situation so demands it, even children are fair target. Are you saying that I'm not even a threat? In that case, listen up, criminal. I am the brother of a hero you cut down, the brother of the finest hero, and I have come to put a stop to in his stead. Don't you ever on your life forget the name Ingenium. That is the name of the hero that will take you down. That's so. Then Di. Ida then sends a quirk-powered kick towards Stain's face, who easily dodges by jumping over Ida. Ingenium's brother. I let him live to feed rumors. Yours, says Stain as he sends a steel-spiked boot into Ida's shoulder, pretty weak. As Ida falls to the ground, Stain takes his katana and runs it through Ida's injured shoulder, effectively pinning him to the ground. You and your brother are both weak, all because you're both fakes. Shut up, you scum, shouts Ida, tears starting to stream from his eyes. The lower half of his body was paralyzed from spinal injuries. He'll never be able to perform any heroics again. He saved so many. He's a splendid hero. He gave me a dream. He's a splendid hero. I'll kill you. First, save him, scoffs Stain as he points a finger towards Native who is still unable to move. Before concerning yourself, go rescue others. Don't go brandishing your power for your own sake, while being consumed by your hatred in front of your enemy, just to satisfy your own selfish desires. That is an act farthest from what it means to be a hero. That is why you will die here. Stain removes the katana from Ida's shoulder and then proceeds to lick the BLD off of the blade. Ida, to his shock, is now suddenly unable to move a muscle. You shall be one of the many offerings towards a just world. Stain then raises his katana, preparing a killing blow. Suddenly, Stain is then kicked in the face by a furry raptor-like foot, knocking Stain away from Ida. As Stain quickly regains his balance, he looks to see who his new opponent is. There, standing over Ida, is a purple humanoid raptor cat hybrid creature. This creature had heavy bags under their tired eyes and strange holes lining their neck. Next to the creature was a dark gray-skinned man with orange hair, wearing brightly colored clothes and had metallic clawed tentacles growing out of their back. "Aw, why did you interrupt him, Shinzi? We could have gotten a nice snack," said the orange-haired man, grinning with shark-like teeth. "I think you forgot why we are here in the first place, Zillion." The purple raptor deadpanned. "Of course, it was for you to get used to your new body and to get a snack along the way. Yes and no. We're supposed to be protecting Izuku's classmate. Honestly, I expected better of someone from 1A. Wait, Shinzi. Thought Ida, Shinso Hitoshi from the sports festival. You two must be one of Nira's beasts," growled Stain. "Beasts?" exclaimed Zillion, looking disgusted. "How dare you? We are her beloved children." Zillion then quickly extended his tentacles, intending to pierce Stain, who skillfully dodges. Shinso comes up behind the stabbing tentacles to try and land a deadly kick with his raptor, scythe-like for claw. Stain barely blocks these kicks with his katana, with Zillion continuing the onslaught of strikes. Zillion steadily walks closer, closing the distance to only increase the frequency of the strikes, all with a manic grin on his face. "Come on, Mr. Stain, stop dodging. I'm starting to get a bit hungry here." Shinso then suddenly changes it up by turning around and smacking Stain with his thick, feathered raptor tail. This throws Stain off and sends him flying into the nearby wall. "Nira's abominations," growled Stain. "You are willing allowing her to alter and deform your bodies." Stain then pulls out 2 daggers from his boots. "Really? And what does that make you, Stendhal?" asked Shinso. "Ho dash," Stain half growled before going completely still. "Ah." Shinzi cut it short, said Zillion as he turned to look at a space over Stain's head. I would have loved to see his fear-filled expression. "He's all your big brother," said Shinso with a lazy grin. Ida and Native looked on in horror as Izuku in his Nomu form slowly appeared over Stain's head with his mouth gaping wide. "Thank for meal," hissed Izuku as he bit down on Stain's upper body, spraying BLD everywhere. There was a muffled scream as Stain was swallowed whole. Izuku, seemingly unbothered by the blades that Stain carried. Tasty meal, plenty iron. Ah, you didn't leave any for us, Zillion pouted. So, this is where you slithered off too, spoke a very disgruntled voice. Then the three who were able to move turned to face the newcomer. There stood at the entrance of the alley was a very tired and clearly irritated Eraserhead. Sensei, exclaimed Ida, finally starting to be able to move. Izuku let out a sharp squeak like his Sensei. We thought we're sneaky. You may have been invisible, but that didn't mean you were quiet. Aizawa then turned to Shinso, taking in the changes that were made to his body. He barely held back the sadness he felt from showing on his face from looking at the drastic changes. Does Present Mike already know of the changes, so he can let your homeroom class know? Or did you drop out completely? Yes, Mother notified Nizu, who notified Mike Sensei. Nizu also says that I'll be transferring to your class since my Neta is dropping out from the hero course, explained Shinso. See, Mr. Eraser Mother has everything under control. No worries, exclaimed Zillion. You must be Zillion. You're the one who will be helping Izuku in his sparing sessions. Yep, that's me. Izuku, Shinso, and Zillion get back to UA before the police get here. Izzy, you're banned from participating in the heroics class for a whole week when everyone gets back from their internships. But we just hungry. Don't care. You should have let me know. Don't think I didn't know what Jekyll was feeding you. We're only allowing it because it's necessary for your diet. Izuku just responded with a sad hiss. Ida, you won't be expelled, but you will also be sitting out from heroics for a week. Let this whole thing be a lesson. Don't let your personal vendettas get in the way of who you want to be. Ida responded with a quiet, yes, sensei. The Mad Lab brother then shortly hurried off back to UA, where Izuku was then scolded by Jekyll on his poor stealthing ability before being sent to bed. Shinso was assigned to Izuku's room till UA could provide a secure room for him. Shinso was more than happy to spend the time with his big brother as they proceeded to snuggle with each other. Shinso giving the excuse that he was just making sure Izuku had enough heat to stay warm. Zillion was to stay in Jekyll's room, who had a spare bed. Though despite the bed, Zillion proceeded to fall asleep on the floor in the middle of the room to Jekyll's dismay. So do you and your family have any more surprises in store for me? Asked a very tired Aizawa, holding a cup of coffee. As far as I am aware, Eraser, that all Mother currently has planned. Though I didn't think Izuku would have been caught so easily, sighed Jekyll. I honestly thought I taught him better than that. Why Shinso? Jekyll hesitated for a moment before answering. Did you know about his home life? Yes, I was working on his case. We couldn't take any action as there wasn't any concrete evidence. Didn't help that the foster parents always passed their welfare checks. Then it's easy. Mother gave him an option to finally leave one horrible family to one that will always love and care for him, as well as disposing of said family. Let me guess the reason the Scholl family went missing was because they were his first meal. Jekyll chuckled, smart as always, Eraser. You and your family may not call yourselves monsters, but that's all your mother and uncle create. No one will ever see it otherwise. So what makes you think they will accept Izuku when word eventually gets out on what he is and what he has to consume just to live? We'll just take him back home and go back into seclusion as Izuku will finally realize he's not meant to help and care for his food. Mother says it's just a phase and he'll realize it soon enough. Something tells me you're going to regret that thought process. He's a good kid at heart. He's not going to give up being a hero anytime soon. Jekyll just shrugs. We'll see. Love bar. There was a loud crash as a glass mug shattered against the wall. DMN IT. Screamed Tamura with a disintegrating newspaper in his hand. The Nomu attack was hardly mentioned. All they're talking about are the DMN mystery survivors of Stain. You were warned, Tamura, sighed Nira, though the fireworks were fun to watch. Just goes to show how much of a brat you still are, scoffed Mr. Hyde from Nira's lap. What did you say, you overgrown rat? Growled Tamura. Suddenly, there was silence as click and buzz filled the bar. The sound came from a nearby laptop with the letters audio only showing on screen. Now, Tamura, this is just another lesson for you to learn, spoke a calm yet intimidating voice. For now, you may want to focus on a new plan. For instance, What about staying that made him so threatening to the heroes? Also, it may not hurt to truly look into having some allies. Why? You mean an actual party, right? Makes sense that I need a proper party to defeat the raid boss. The voice hummed in agreement. Yes, that's a good start. Oh, and Nira, come over here, the good doctor requires your insight. Yes, right away, sensei, answered Nira. Kirojiri, if you would please open a portal. Kirojiri nodded in acknowledgement before opening a portal for Nira. As Nira left, Tamura was quietly mumbling to himself, I need a party, but who should I invite? Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Snake Mutation? We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to XiyakaHex for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on fanfiction.net for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe